Hello, I think we are good to go. So just to welcome you all. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the class. I can see that some have come and gone, probably the network issue. Today we have with us two of our students who are two of our colleagues in the class. So who have joined in today, Kajal and Uma. Okay. Uma, can you just give a brief about yourself before we start? Uma, just if you can also, if it is possible, can you just put on your camera so that I'll just kind of get acquainted with you, because not all your names have your photographs. So it becomes easier for me to relate to you.
Good morning, sir. Sir, I'm
And
Poorna,
yeah,
and there's some
yeah, good morning.
camera issue here. So there's
Okay,
some camera problem. I'll just join from my tab, then I can just turn on
yeah,
the camera. Till then, I'll just explain you my profile. So I'm Poorna,
sure.
and I have completed my
Yeah,
BLLB honors. I'm a law graduate, and I'm currently working with an NGO as a project manager, and I'm handling all the 9 projects. And my main job is to like supervise, coordinate, monitor, and making proposals, preparing budgets for the project. This is my main profile here. So
okay,
I've, I've started my work like for, I'm doing job in NGO field only. Not I've though I'm a law graduate, I've not worked in that sector. But yes, I've been in this NGO sector for quite a while. So yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's about
Uma,
myself.
just for my knowledge sake, what's the name of the NGO? Just so that I get an idea, what is your sector that you're working in? I mean, as in issues that
Um,
you're working on.
I'm Deeds Public Charitable Trust. It's an NGO which work for the hearing impaired, and we give us vocational training, skill training, and their educational projects, and it's all free for the deaf. And we have one of a school in Dehradun, which is Bajaj Institute of Learning, and we provide education from
Mhm.
pre-primary to class 12, and everything is free for the deaf. We don't charge anything, and in some of the projects we give them
Okay,
placements also. And yes, this is my profile, so, and I'm handling the projects there,
yeah,
all the 9 Mumbai based projects, not the Dehradun.
okay, okay. That's interesting. I mean, this gives me an idea. Uh, like, good to know that you are in this project as a project manager in terms of writing proposals. In fact, today's session will mean a lot to you. Of course, all the sessions are important for all of us. But today's session
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
will give you a lot of insights, because we're going to look at very clearly outlining what will go into a project and all those kinds of things. Yeah, something very much closely associated with your
Yes, sir.
profile. Yes. So let's go ahead. Yeah. I think the others,
Thank you, sir.
we know. Yeah. Sorry, you were saying something?
No, I was saying thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. With the online thing, we it's a kind of, it's always a struggle to sometimes get an understanding of our words. At any time, if you are not able to hear me, or at any time you are not able to connect, or as in I suddenly get logged out or whatever it is. So students, please contact Nikita, who's there in the group right now. So Nikita will probably call me up on the phone and tell me if I ever get logged out, but I'll try to get in. But should not be a problem, because I think my network is fine for today. Yes. So let's go ahead. Just as I said, we'll just do a very quick recap so that we do not spend too much of time. If you remember just some of the highlights of what we did last time, anybody from the group who was there? Anybody? Very quickly. Hello. Yeah. Anybody would just like to give a very quick recap of what we were doing? Um, Hello. Okay, let's put it like this. Kushala, you'd like to go in? I mean, just to say some things from last time's that you remember.
Yes, sir. I'll just
Yes,
try
please
to.
tell me.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah. Please don't worry
in
about.
in our last lecture we learned
Yeah.
about the project management overview and qualification, and the second topic was approaches of project management, key domain like people, process, and
Hmm.
environment, and project life cycle. In project management, we learned about the elements that are part of project management. We did a
Hmm.
brainstorming session to understand what are the components of project management, and we finally got into something called um, it's one second, sir, I'll tell you. We made a big flow chart on that. Then it
Hmm.
was planning,
Hmm.
implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. These all the components were put under these four broad headings. That was project management. Then we learned about
Yes.
the project cycle. Uh,
Hmm.
Again, under project cycle, it was sorry, I forgot that.
Yeah. Yes. The
Somebody
project
can take
cycle,
up.
as in the. Yes. Yeah. Anybody else can say, like when we're
Yeah,
looking at it on the copy.
yeah, sorry. Project cycle was planning,
Yeah.
implementation, monitoring, and reviewing. These are actually project cycle. Sorry.
Yeah.
And under
Yes. So
project,
that's. Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. Okay, Kushal, I think you sufficiently, very beautifully were able to bring out the highlights of the last session that we had. It was a lot of very basic points that we would normally learn in a management class in terms of project management. I tried to bring in a corporate perspective, as I mentioned in my last training with you. So let me quickly run you through that just for those who were not there last time. So I spoke to you about the whole understanding of what is project management. If you can see the screen that I'm sharing with you, I spoke to you about project management as skills, tools, and the processes requiring to take a project ahead. And I looked at these things very carefully in terms of skills, tools, and processes. Okay, I looked at the project qualifications as you were looking at it, as in when we are looking at a project, we are looking at the name of a project, the problem it attempts to address, okay, and how we can actually come up with a project overview. So I gave you a little insight into an overview, which is something very similar to when we're looking at the social work sector. We look at a concept note. Okay, so we did a little exercise also of coming up with a project overview, and I asked you to write the scope of your project and what is it that you would need to write within a project overview. And after this exercise, we did a brief summary on that, and we looked at in an overview that comes in. We looked at in an overview that comes in. We look at the name, the project manager, the sponsor, as in the funder, the case, as in the understanding of how a summary, like in short, what it attempts to address in terms of the problems, the goals, the deliverables, the risk and obstacles. Yeah, so we looked at this and we looked at an example too. There was something also that we looked at in terms of qualification elements in terms of a project. We look at time, cost, scope, and quality. So when we have a project, it's important to have a clear understanding of what are the requirements, what are the requirements, what are the scope, and what are the quality. So when we have a project, it's important to have a clear understanding of what are the requirements, what are the scope, and what are the quality. So when we have a project, it's important to have a clear understanding of what are the requirements, what are the scope, and quality. So when we have a project, it's important to have a clear understanding of what are the requirements, what are the scope, and quality. So when we have a project, it's important to have a clear understanding of what are the requirements, what are the scope, and quality. So when we have a project, it's important to have a clear understanding of what are the requirements, what are the scope, and quality. So when we have a project, it's important to have a clear understanding of what are the requirements, what are the scope, and quality. So when we have a project, it's important to have a clear understanding of what are the requirements, what are the scope, and quality. So when we have a project, it's important to have a clear understanding of what are the requirements, what are the scope, and quality. definition of time. Okay, we'll be looking at some of these things in detail in today's class in terms of critical path and to determine a work breakdown structure. Okay, cost is something that we will look at in the probably in the next Sunday session, because we'll be looking at costing in terms of budgeting. The scope is, of course, what we need to understand, where we'll do a little bit today in today's class in terms of the goal and actually coming out with concrete an outline. Okay. And then the quality in terms of human resources is something also that every project needs to have. So these are some of the important things in a project. I also spoke to you about the 5 approaches, as in the 5 approaches. When we are looking at the 5 approaches, we are looking at the understanding of the traditional approach, and then followed, the traditional approach, as in the beginning where you start initiation, project initiation. I'll come to that slide slowly. But then when we're looking at an approach, we look at an agile, which is flexible, a project that is flexible. The waterfall, that is a project which has a sequencing, as in a project flow. Then you have a systems approach, which is a typical project which has a framework. Okay, this is something again that we will be doing in the next class in detail. What is this framework? A log frame that we look at, an LFA, log frame analysis. Okay, then we look at a program management approach, is where we actually look at how a project is managed and managed effectively in order to attain the goal. Okay. There were some things that I spoke to you about, the 3 performance domains, that if a project has to succeed, it needs to make sure that the right people are in place. There is a process and there is a business environment. Okay, the people are those who actually run the project, as in your team and how you build a team. The process is how you actually work on the technical skills, as in the steps of working out the project. Okay, there is a lot of processes involved in this, right from communication to stakeholder analysis, budgeting, scheduling. So this process is very interesting when we're looking at a project. Then finally, the business environment, which is in a business, we need to make sure that there is compliance, there is management. We need to manage the external influences in a project, as in risk. And also we are looking at how a project actually changes, how does a project work towards change? Okay, this was the project cycle management I spoke to you about. This was the diagram: project initiation, project planning, execution, and closure. And in these, we looked at the common project cycle management as understood in management circles. So you have initiation, project planning, then execution, and the closure. And this we did it very concretely to relate it to what you are in the social work sector. I said a very simple way of understanding it is planning, implementation, monitoring, and review. And as Kushala rightly said, we looked at a kind of a actual project, and we tried to dissect that project in terms of understanding how do we go about it. And we looked at certain things like elements required in terms of needs assessments, goals, duration, implementation, monitoring. So when we're looking at all these points, 4 important points is which stands out in the whole process from the start to the end. That is, in the beginning, it is planning, then it is implementation, monitoring, and then finally it is evaluation. Okay, that's the project life cycle. So this is one example that we took and we tried to work through that. Okay, I think this is quite a quick summary of the entire 4 hours that we took in the last class. Okay, now coming to today's class, any questions that you still have from the last class and you feel that, okay, I did not understand this, or I need to have a deeper insight into this? Would you like me to share anything? Hello. Today we are going to look at strategic planning. Okay, and we will be looking at various aspects. I mean, I put it as the title as strategic planning because this is a very interesting exercise that I will be taking you through in today's class. And let's see how we can go about it. Can I have some kind of interaction within you? Because otherwise I'm talking to my laptop. Hello?
Yes, sir, but your voice is breaking, sir.
Oh, is it? Now how do I solve this? Not sure why it's happening, but let me see. Like last time, probably I'll shift to my phone account. One. Maybe I'll put off my camera. Is my camera on? Maybe that's taking a. Yeah, I think I'll just switch off my camera. Yes. Now, how does it sound? Am I audible now? Or is my voice still breaking?
It's
So it's
better.
better now.
Yeah, I think it's the camera probably. It's taking in too many bytes. Okay, fine. Let's look at it now. Yeah. So let me go straight away to my module that we're looking at. Yeah. So this is the kind of the 4 important points in last class you need to look at is the project management in terms of the overview and qualification approaches, key domains, and the project life cycle. So if you remember these 4 main points of my last class, I think we would have got in a nutshell what I was trying to communicate. Okay, so any questions once again before we start?
No, sir.
Okay.
Is it fine? Should I go ahead?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, so let me see. I was just trying to adjust so that my table, Okay, fine. We will start with today's class. As you can see on your screen there, today we will be attempting to look at 3 important areas, or rather 4 points I will be dealing with also. One point is connected to the whole planning process. Okay. See, basically, we are going to just look at the first part of the project cycle, and that is planning. If you remember, when you initiate a project, maybe I'll just flip through my last presentation so you'll get a connection to what I'm trying to say. See, in my last lecture, I spoke to you about project management life cycle. Now you have 4 important points if you remember. Okay, project initiation, project planning, project execution, and project closure. So we'll be dealing with basically these 2 points, but in social work circles, we kind of use the word planning. Of course, in management too, we use the word planning. But I would like to put the whole point of project initiation and planning into one particular point, and today that's going to be the central focus of my lecture today. Okay, so what is project initiation? As in, how do we initiate a project? And what is the planning that we need to put into place in terms of a project and within the organization? What is the organizational development processes that we need to be attentive to when we begin or when we initiate a whole process of a project in our organization? Okay, so that's the little background of connecting it to the last class. I'll just go back to my. So this is what we are going to look at. So when I'm looking at planning, I'm looking at 2 important processes. Okay, one thing is strategic planning. Now, strategic planning, we shall go in detail and understand how we look at it in terms of an overview or an overall perspective into putting systems and processes into an organization in terms of its clarity. Okay, so we'll go step by step over it. And the second important point is the whole needs assessment part. I didn't write it down, in the summary here of the syllabus, but we will be moving into that towards the end of the class, and I will give you a small kind of a, after these two lectures of mine, in today's lecture, I'm going to give you a little homework to do. I know each one of you are very busy in your work life, but I'm sure this would be an interesting kind of an homework which I'm going to give you, which you will be able to do it quite effectively. Okay. In the context of working out a project, we will look at project risk management because that is part of your syllabus. Of course, I've kept it as a separate point, but I will be integrating it into the whole understanding of a project. Okay, the whole working of a project. Let me go further. This I told you in the last class. These are my next two lectures. Again, action-packed because just for those who did not attend my last class, in the following Sunday, I'll be looking at very clear project development processes and monitoring. And the last class, I'll look at evaluation and how do we go about evaluation in terms of, participatory evaluation. How do we undertake a participatory evaluation? Okay. Now, in the last class, I gave you an outline as in to say what am I looking forward to in terms of your take home. Okay. Your take home would mean that you would definitely understand project management, but the fact is that there are certain important things that you need to keep in mind. I'm going to ask you a self-study article on the topic of what I'm going to give you as a homework. Okay, this is going to be an article which I will give you to review. I will give you to read. It's not a very heavy article. Considering your tight schedules, I'm giving you a moderate article to read. It's called Needs Assessment and Introduction. Okay, and I will give you a documentary review. Both are very interesting, so I put down both. Actually, even if you watch one is fine. You review the documentary in the context of the topic that you will be reading. Okay, it's called Needs Assessment. In this context of needs assessment, you will be looking at a documentary. Okay, I am giving you an assignment of 30 marks. Okay, so as I told you, it's kind of a homework, but this homework is in a context and in between my lectures. So what will happen is that you'll actually work on it. Otherwise, if I give you an assignment at the end, it becomes meaningless. Okay, so this assignment I will explain in detail. You will understand it as soon as we reach the end of our class. So there you will be taking a needs assessment in an urban rural community, urban or rural. You will follow the process which I will elaborate during the class. Okay, that would mean drawing up a problem tree, preparing a tool that will cover the causes to the focal problem identified. Then I'm focusing on the tool. Okay, that because this is something very interesting to do, and this is a skill. I believe it's a very important skill that you need to understand. Okay. So the assignment will consist of two parts, A and B. The A part is drawing up the problem tree and the B part is coming up with a tool. Okay. And of course, you have a term end examination, which I mentioned last time, and your participation in class, which holds 20 marks. Okay. Any questions about this some assessment deliverables? If you have, I'm sure you will get it more and more clarified as we go ahead with the class. Just initial remarks as I go ahead. Hello. Am I clear? Am I still breaking up?
No, sir, it's clear.
Yeah, it's clear.
Yes.
No? Okay, fine. Yeah. Thank you. I do hope you are all listening in, although I don't hear all the voices, but all the same, I believe that you are listening. So today's session will consist of 4 parts, as I was telling you, and all are quite intensively packed, as in they're all very interesting. Please do not miss it. Even if you know about it, please, if you know about it, so much the better, because you can add value to the discussions that will happen. Okay. As I was telling you, there is first thing we will look now is at understanding what is this planning and what is this processes involved. The second part is it's a superb thing. I call it really interesting because strategic planning is something that is the most quoted and misunderstood topic, because many people don't understand it as in what is strategic planning. Okay, and the third part is a very practical part of the session. We'll be looking out at certain very concrete processes like work breakdown structure, a critical path analysis. But I have a feeling might shift that down and I will straight go off to community analysis. I've reworked something, so that will go up, and then I'll take work breakdown structure towards the end with critical path analysis. Let's see how and project risk management is again part of your syllabus, which I will integrate it with this whole process. Okay. So this is how I have planned my today's class. Okay. So let me go on to this next. I'm again taking off from where we left last time. We left last time with this acronym called PIME. Okay, if you remember, I think Kushala has already mentioned it. PIME is, as all of us are quite familiar with, monitoring and evaluation. Thank you for whoever has said that. Okay, so planning. So planning is something I think that should become a mantra that all of us in our sector, in the social work sector, should have it. And it's quite an interesting part of the whole process. Of course, as I mentioned to you, we have it also in terms of a project cycle management. Okay, so I'm coming back to this diagram again. If you see my slide, I do hope my screen is visible to you. So we have project initiation, project planning, project execution, and project closure. Okay, so in that context, we look at the whole process of planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. Now, today's class, as I mentioned to you, will focus on this very interesting part of planning. Okay, of course, sometimes it's a disadvantage to use a slide because I've already said what I want to say. So planning is looking ahead. Okay, so from those of you who have worked in projects and all, what are the important points that come to your mind when you're looking at planning? I mean, or rather, what are the words that come to your mind when you're looking at planning? Anybody? So when you're looking at planning, what is it that we're looking at? What are the thoughts that come to your mind when we're looking at planning in the context of a project? Make it specific.
The set of activities which will have to be done as in the project.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so there is a set of activities. Very interestingly, I like the point. I still don't recognize your voices. Who is that who said it?
Kajal.
I think. Kajal, thank you. Yeah, I think you're from the project. Yeah, thank you, Kajal. I think you're from the project management. I mean, you're handling projects, so you know that in any project, one of the important parts of a project is activities. And you rightly said that activities are important while planning. So you look at some of the activities. But today, Kajal, probably I will shake your foundations a little bit. Okay. So yeah. So when you're looking at planning, what else are we looking at? Activities is what Kajal said. Anybody else? Maybe I'll do a little
duration and
with you,
timelines.
Okay, very good. I love to use this. Yeah, duration and timelines. Yes. Let me just put it up very quickly. Now my computer is going slow. Let me see how I can manage that. Okay. I will use a Word document like yesterday, like last Sunday. Last Sunday we did a Word document also, just so that I don't miss out on what you're saying. Okay. So you said activities, then duration, and what else did you say? Sorry.
Sequence timelines.
Yeah, duration would be a timeline, correct? Yeah.
So Sakshi here, so planning to me is like a continuous process. It starts right from when you're setting up your objective to the goals to the yes, of course, timelines, to the monetary aspect involved, finances, everything. So planning will be a continuous process of any project.
Yeah, yeah. You're looking at a continuum when you're looking at planning, as in like you're looking at it on a continuum. Yeah. So it's a continuous process, as you rightly said. It's a process. Very good. Yes. You also mentioned finance. Okay. Yeah. So basically, when you're looking at planning, you are actually looking at the whole process of looking ahead, as I put in my slide here. When you're looking at planning, you are saying, hey, I want to get to this point. One more thing, when somebody mentioned, I just now remembered, somebody said goal also. Okay, you're looking at the goal. Okay, you're looking at a project which has activities, which has a timeline, people are involved in it, finances there, goals are there. Okay, so this is fantastic. So when you're looking at planning, basically you're saying, hello, this is my goal, and this is where I need to go. And I need to go there. That's my end point, as in, and I'm looking ahead and saying, what do I need to do? Okay. So planning is basically putting into order that vision of mine into a workable kind of a document. Okay. So what is this whole thing of planning? So in planning, we have a whole process whereby we are looking at organizing, coordinating, controlling, okay, a project effectively and efficiently. Okay, so we are putting into a document, or we are putting it down into paper. They say no, plan is what? A plan is something that you visualize and you document it. You visualize and you put it down into a paper. So it's a process of planning where you're organizing your thoughts. You know, you have such a clear perspective to say, this is my goal, this is where I need to go. Then you organize it, you coordinate, and you take control of the entire process. Okay. You look at all the elements that need to go into the efficient and effective. I've used two words in the slide ahead of you. I said, this is my project. I'm visualizing this project. This project consists of a start and an end. I'm organizing it and I'm putting it into order. I'm putting it and controlling, coordinating it into a process. And I'm trying to see how effectively and efficiently this can be worked out from the beginning to the end. That beginning consists of the whole process, as in the execution. This put my current. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So right from the beginning to the end. My screen has gone. Am I still on the class? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay, great. You can see my screen also. Yeah, great. You can, as long as I don't lose contact of you, because that's the disadvantage of technology in this situation. Okay, then looking at it, and of course, we will go later on to actually looking at how we draw implementing plans. Implementation will come as a process, and that will be included also in the planning along with the monitoring plan. So all that comes into the plan. So when we're looking at how will I achieve my goal? Okay, how will I achieve my objectives? Sorry, how will I achieve my objectives? And I try to put it down. Okay, so there is this whole process. I'm coming back to project cycles. So just to revisit what I taught in the last class. When we're looking at a project, we are looking at a process. You rightly said a process. So putting down whatever you have mentioned as in the process, I'm trying to open up and okay, maybe I'll just use this. Okay, so let me get to this. So I'm looking at a process. So if I'm looking at a project, okay, you are looking at a process from the start to the end. So suppose I say I look at it as the start and I initiate, Okay. Then there is the second part. Can you fill in very quickly? I'm sure you've seen the previous slide. So we're looking at the process of implementation, right? Yeah. And the third part is would be the process of
Monitoring.
yeah. I think all of you are on the same plane with me. And the last part is
Evaluation.
Evaluation.
Okay. Yeah. Now, very quickly, if I may look at these four things, and we say, okay, we are in the process of planning. So how do I actually look at this whole process when I look at starting a project? Initiating a project. So when I initiate, what am I looking at? What would come into the whole phase of initiation, into the whole phase of a project getting initiated?
A data analysis or a need assessment?
What would be okay, yeah. So one important point is you need to get your data. Okay, so you mentioned data, and I will put data as in, I'm just putting in data at the moment. So you said data analysis. So you analysis is something that you would do with the data. Yeah, so data analysis that you would do at the beginning. I agree with you on that point. Now you will automatically, as if you follow my screen, you'll automatically be able to fill in this whole part of the initiation and say what comes into the initiation part. Anybody else would like to go in?
Need assessment.
Okay, very good. Yeah, that's an interesting point that you have mentioned, and I'm sure you kind of know, because this is a very apt term that you have used. Need assessment, and that is exactly what we're going to look at in detail by the end of the class. Yeah, needs assessment, need assessment, or needs assessment, you call it. Okay, yeah. Yeah, needs assessment is exactly what really needs assessment means. Can you flesh it out a little bit? When you say needs assessment, what are we looking at?
What are the needs to start the project? Like place.
Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, I'll put it down. So one of the needs is a place, or we call it the location. Okay, okay.
Or it's the requirements of a
as in
particular beneficiaries. I mean, if we are working for certain community,
I'm sorry, I missed you. Yeah.
Hello, so Priyanka here.
Okay. Requirements of the community.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are the requirements are there? What changes needs to be done? So that would be the part of need assessment.
Okay, so you're looking at what is the change that you wish to bring about in the community. Okay, that's very interesting. I'm putting down your words so that I don't miss out your words. In the context of these words, I will actually flesh out the entire process to you. Okay. Okay, change is something that you're looking at. You're looking at certain requirements from the community. Okay, I'll put it community because that's exactly what you said. What are the community requirements? Okay, I'll put it down that way. Okay. The location.
So funding support.
What are the other things that? Okay, the needs assessment would look at funding. Okay, we can. I'll put. Sorry. Come again.
So it'll help us to identify the problem statement.
Okay. You are saying a very interesting part of the whole process. Where would you put this problem statement? Whoever mentioned that. Where would you put this problem statement?
So the need assessment,
yes.
The findings from the need assessment will help us to identify the problems.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so you are saying a very interesting part. The whole thing would be the problem statement. Okay. What is this problem statement? You have made a very good point that you have mentioned. The problem statement is exactly what you are saying. What?
So, like the next set of activities will be actually based on this. So when we do the needs assessment, we will be able to identify what is the real problem, and then my next set of activities will follow the course.
Okay, since you mentioned activities, I'm putting it down here. What are these activities? There is a whole set of problems that you will identify. Okay, so you're looking at the community and you're saying, what are those needs of the community? And in the context of this community, you're looking at certain problems. You mentioned a very interesting part of the whole process. I think it is, who mentioned it? Is it Kajal?
Yes, sir.
I think so. Yeah. So that's interesting because you mentioned a very interesting part of the whole process of needs assessment. When you're looking at needs assessment, you are trying to arrive at what is the problem of the community or what is the issue that the community wishes to address. Okay, it is a very important skill, my dear students, that you need to pick up by the end of this course. Therefore, I have even placed it as a kind of an assignment for you, because I believe very firmly, being in the field for the last 25, 30 years, these are some skills as in project management you need to know, and you should be so good at it that you should actually have it at the tip of your fingers. And when you're in the field, if you're looking at a project, you need to know about it's like kind of mandatory to understand the process of needs assessment. Okay, so great. Yeah. Any other thing you think you need to know about when you're looking at needs assessment? And any other thing that we should come in the initiation phase in this planning part?
So the goal, like what we exactly want to achieve after getting all the data.
Very good. So goal is very important. So we'll be looking at the goal. Okay, so I'm putting down what you're saying here. So we need to look at a goal. So we need to come out with a goal. Yeah. Now, roughly, I've just thrown this into different sections. But let's see where we can place this. Okay. So let's figure this out. Okay. So suppose if I say the goal is something that we come about in understanding the project, right? Okay. So there would be a need in the planning to come up with a document. Shall I say that? Okay. When you're looking at planning, there is a need to come up with a document. What do you call this document? Okay. I think all of us may be familiar with it. So it's called the proposal. Yeah. So see, at the planning stage, we need to come up with this proposal. And this proposal needs to have we need to come up with a document which is very clear when we approach funders, which we have a very clear perception when we approach our bosses, not only funders. You in CSR, you will be approaching your manager, for example. Say you are in the department, like I was just having a conversation with Kajal and Puma. So see, you are in a department that is handling whatever issue that you're addressing. Okay. You may not be going to actually any funder, but you will be approaching your manager, your CSR manager, your CEO, and you'll be saying that you require certain X amount of funds. But in order to do that, you need to have a document in place. And there was one more document that I asked you last time, and I said it is called the project overview, right? Okay. I called it the project overview, and I used another important word in social work terminology, and that is called the concept note. Now I'm using certain things like this because you'll be familiar with these terms also. Or if for your manager, if you give it a project overview, I think he'll understand a project overview. Okay. So maybe some words are very synonymous. So I'm just using. So there is a concept note and there is a document, or you call it a project proposal. Okay, so let me put it down as a project proposal. So suppose if I just write it down as a project proposal. Now these are the important things that you need to prepare in when you are initiating the project. Okay, Because if you're going to approach your funder, if you're going to look at funding, then you need to have your concept note, you need to have a project proposal in place. Okay. And you need to do a very important process as you initiate planning, and that's called needs assessment. Okay. So looking at these points here, what are the important points that you think should go into a concept note or a project proposal? Okay, which you think should be important elements of this whole thing. I'll just slide this across here so that we'll focus now only on initiating. Okay, so suppose if we look at this, I'm sure you can see my screen. Hello, and you're following me, right?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes,
So suppose if you're looking at a concept note, what are the important elements that will go into a concept note?
goals, activities.
First and foremost, a concept note is what? And yeah, sorry, you were saying something.
Goals, activities. This is what we can cover under the project proposal.
Okay, fine. I'll just put down what you're saying. You say the goals, then you have in a concept note and activities. Okay. Remember the last class also what I taught you about a project overview. What are the important things that need to go into a project overview? So you're looking at a concept note, you're looking at a project overview.
Overview or the introduction, context setting maybe.
So introduction about the
Yes, context.
organization and.
Okay, yes. So something about the organization. Okay, something about the organization. Okay.
Program title, the project title, and the
Okay, so
details of the.
yes, so you have a project title. Okay. Oh, very good. I think yeah, you've come about, and there's one more important thing which in a concept note that needs to go in.
The impact, maybe at the last, what impact we are planning to achieve.
Okay, I'll put it down. Yeah. Okay, so you're looking at some kind of an impact. Okay, and one more important. Why are you going with a concept note? What is the purpose of going to a person for a concept note?
Funding requirements.
You're going for? Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so you're going there for the purpose of funding, right? So you're looking at so you definitely want to get some funds. So if you're looking at a concept note, you're going to have so many things. And I'm just going to put a very simple question across. Now, if you're going to put so many things into a concept note, how big a concept note has to be? It has to be roughly 2 pages. Okay, not more than 2 pages. Because if you're going to a concept, what is the reason you are going for an overview? Basically to get an approval, to get an idea across to your boss, to your manager, or to the funding agency. So what you're trying to do is basically trying to say that you're going to sell or give them the idea that this is what I'm planning to do. Now, in order to say that, okay, you need to say all that in 2 pages. How will you put it across? Now, that is an art, of course. How do I communicate the key important words in the shortest span, as it were? Or it's like something like, I also teach social entrepreneurship. We have a thing called business pitch. You make a pitch. I think all of you might be seeing this famous thing on Shark Tank. I think on TV, you see this program called Shark Tank. Yeah. So, hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
Shark
sir.
Tank is a very interesting. Yeah. Shark Tank. So, there you are going to make a pitch. A concept note is something like a pitch. You're going to make a pitch to the funder in 2 pages. Telling the person, this is the entire overview of my project. Okay. So how do you go about it? You will first definitely tell him or her about this is my organization. Okay. And this is the title of my project. Okay. you will talk about the context, and if I may add one more important thing here, you will say what is the problem or the issue that I'm intending to address. Okay. And finally, in this context, you will say what is the impact that I'm looking at. Okay. Now, in order to get this impact, immediately you will say, I am planning to get this impact through the activities that I'm planning. Okay, so you have, I forgot one important thing is that the goals of my project. So if you're looking at title, after the title, you can put in the goals. Okay, then you can put in the context. Okay, and then your activities and the funds. So if you can sequence it this way, roughly, I think you would have covered a concept note in 2 pages. I know this may be sounding a lot, but actually speaking, it would not be so much because you will have to limit the number of lines that you write. Okay, and this you will say that, of course, funds is towards the end. You will not be putting an entire budget, but you would be saying that you would require an X amount of money, okay, to achieve these various things. So I do hope you will be able to understand that the whole understanding of a concept note. Is there any other questions? Do you want me to? So this is a good connection with last class also, because I spoke about in the last class about project overview. So this is an important part. Anybody would like to do you have any questions along these lines?
So do you think even the
Hello?
timeline is required in a concept note? The duration
Yes,
of the
timeline. Yes. Okay, you could put in a duration. That's a good point that you mentioned. Okay, so suppose if you put in a duration, you can say that you hope to achieve this in X amount of time. Okay, say in a period of 12 months, or you require 1.5 years to 2 years, whatever it is. Okay, so you could put in a timeline. Okay. Basically, in a concept note, in a nutshell, remember that a concept note is like a summary, an executive summary. Like how you write an article, you write an executive summary. In the same way, when you or you write a research article, or for that matter, you have a summary at the beginning. So concept note is something like a summary that you give.
So can we mention the SDGs also here, like which SDG we are following? This project will be
perfect.
coming.
Yes,
coming
yes.
under.
Yeah, certainly. And SDGs can always connect it to your your goals of your project. So if you're looking at SDGs, you could just a minute. There's someone at the door. One. Yes. Yeah, hello. Yeah, sorry. So there was somebody at my door, so I had to attend. My wife is in the inner part. So, okay, fine. Coming back to this, I think the concept note is clear to each one of you. See, this is an important skill to develop as a social work, in the field of, for that matter, management and CSR. So please get the understanding. Yeah, any questions?
Sir, sir, I just wanted to check if it is a CSR proposal, do you think it is a good idea to say under which Schedule 7, how it is covered under Schedule 7?
Yes, certainly. See, definitely, you can make those connections accordingly, Kushala. I think that's a good point that you mentioned. So if you're looking at a particular thing, you could always connect it to what are you kind of, Schedule 7 of the CSR. How does it actually, what are the areas? Okay, I can do one thing is you can probably connect it when you're looking at your goal itself, because you can be more specific. So you can see what are those activities that will get covered. Yeah. So, yeah. See, important also make sure that your impact is visible. Okay, so if you're taking an issue, say what will be the impact, and what will be along with impact, you're looking at how if you can also, in CSR, one of the important things to do is to say, give numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Sir,
yeah,
just sorry
yeah,
to interrupt you. Like earlier, when we used to write this
yeah.
project overview, they were asking target beneficiaries benefited, or year wise, we have to give a number also. I don't know. Now also we give, is it also
Yes,
mandatory a
yes,
part of
yes,
it?
yes. That's the
Target
reason.
number of.
Yeah, you will give an overall kind of targeting, as in saying the change you're likely to impact X number of beneficiaries having access to, say, that many products or that many services which you are intending to provide. Okay, so those larger figures, you won't go into the nitty-gritty. Please note, in a concept note, you will just say that you intend to reach out to, say, to the context. In this, you are going to say that you're going to work with, say, the physically challenged, and in reaching out to, say, 5,000, so let's be realistic, say around 500 of these physically challenged. Okay, and you will be providing them with certain services. Okay, which would be A, B, C. So that is the kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So a concept note would cover these important things. Okay. See, writing a concept note is very important because I'm going before the project proposal, because project proposal is quite detailed. I'll go into the whole parts of the project proposal. But before we go into project proposal, I thought the concept note is something that if you want to make that's why I call it, it's practically like a pitch. You make a pitch, you get your funds, you get it sanctioned by your manager, or you get it sanctioned by the funding agency, and you're on. So that is how it is. Yeah. Now this is with regard to the whole concept note. So let's park it out now for the moment. I think we'll, yeah. So this is fine. Let's now look at another important aspect in the whole process, and that was preparing a project proposal. Okay. Shall we go ahead? Hello? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Let me just go
Yes, sir.
back to my slides. I hope I'm on schedule. Yeah. So this is the whole part. See, so what we are into is the whole process of identification and the project preparation. So in this part of project initiation and project planning, you are into an important phase of assessment and design. That means you're designing your project. That is a very important. I'm spending a little more time on this because I feel that project design is something that all of us must have hands-on experience on, literally. That's why I love to take my classes offline, but unfortunately the online mode is like kind of the best I can do. So project preparation is actually coming up with a design. So what is this design that we are looking at? Okay, we are looking at delivering what? Delivering a very specific. That's why I said in your concept note, you would talk about specific deliverables, sorry, deliverables. Okay, what are those deliverables in terms of outcomes and outputs with a predefined time, cost, and quality constraints? Okay, so you are looking at saying that this is what my project intends to deliver, and it should be defined and executed and evaluated according to that plan. See, because when you're looking, your manager is going to say, show me a plan, and that plan should be well defined. It should have a process of execution. It has to have components of evaluation. See, I'm using very specific terms. Components of evaluation. We'll come to that, of monitoring and evaluation. And of course, that is the plans which will cover cost, benefits, and risk. Okay, so when you're coming up with a project, it has to be well defined. So Project Management Institute, in fact, defines it as a temporary endeavor taken to create a unique product or a service. Okay, so in corporate terminology, when you're talking to your boss, you'll say, what is the product or what is the service that you intend to deliver. Okay. So of course, in social work, I'm a social worker basically. I mean, I call myself a social worker because I work in the field of social work. But the fact is, in the social work field, we are different. So this is, I think this is one line you'll have to keep telling your bosses who come from the corporate sector. Because they will always look at creating a unique product or a service. They'll say, you're taking up this project. What is the product or the service for delivering? Okay, this is one question that will be always at the end. Okay, so you will need to say what for us in social work terminology is what is the change that we wish to bring about in the community, as in that change which is measurable. Okay. So this in that sense, we need to be unique in the way we present our product or service. Okay. So this product or services will talk about a life cycle, as I was just talking to you about. It will have a beginning and an end, and there will be a budget attached to it. There will be a sequence of activities. There will be resources that will be required, both financial, material, non-material, as in human resources. Okay, so there are resources that will be required. And of course, there would be certain responsibilities for management and for the implementation. There would be roles and relationships defined very clearly in the whole working out of the project. Okay. So let's see about this. Just before I go ahead, there is some important points that I think we missed out probably. One important thing is activities which came up by you. You mentioned about activities, but one important point which I think when we're looking at planning is the whole process of what is a strategy. So suppose if I flip between, if I flip between this other thing which I was looking at, one more important thing when we're looking and initiating planning is the whole understanding of a strategy. Okay, so we are looking at activities, but one important point that we missed out is probably the strategy. And perhaps another important aspect was to put in the whole thing of when we're looking at is the whole aspect of resources. You mentioned funding. So I would like to put it as resources. Okay, so when I talk about resources, I am looking at resources that involve funding. Okay, that is financial resources. Okay, when you're looking at resources, you're looking at financial resources. Okay, then you're looking at human resources. Okay? And you're looking at material resources, as in infrastructure, office, all those kind of things. Okay, so you're looking at material or infrastructure. So when you're looking at planning a project, you're looking at certain things like resources. Okay. Yeah. Now, suppose if I look at all these things in the process of initiation and planning, I'd like you to look at the set of things mentioned here. What do you think needs to go in? Is there some points that we have still missed out? I'm asking you as a group. You know, I directly put in the points that we missed out, but there are some more important points that we need to look at when we are looking at planning. Can anybody just take a guess? Hello? Anybody would like to take a guess? So we are looking at in the initial part, we need to come up with a concept note. We need to come up with a project proposal. We need to do a needs assessment. What else do you think we need to put into place when we are doing a planning? Okay, let me put it like this.
So
when
the
we are
risks.
planning, very good point that you mentioned. Yes, risk. Okay, so risk is something that we need to look at and say, is the project, you know, really going to work. So you will do a risk assessment. Okay, you will look at the risk that the project potentially can, the kind of influences that can things that can influence the project. Okay, let's look at some things. Let me look at it differently. I'll probably give you a feeler. When you're starting a project, you need to make sure that certain basic premises are put into place. What are those basic premises? Okay, you mentioned about goal, right? Okay, who gives you the goal of the project? Or rather, how do you come to know the goal of the project? I ask you a very simple question. How do you come to know about the goal of the project? Yes.
Sir, after research and need assessment, then we get an idea what is required on the field, and that's how we can identify the goal, like
Okay.
how we can help.
Okay. Yes. So you're saying the goal will come out from the problem statement. I'm just parking it at the moment here. But as a whole, as in, like say,
It has to
like for example, yeah, tell me.
it has to resonate with the organization's goal and vision, the project.
Yes, yes. Who's that? Who said it? Yeah, yeah. Who said that just now? Kushala, you
Correct.
mentioned a very important point.
No, it's Kajal.
Sorry, Kajal. Whoever said it. Yeah, Kajal, I think you mentioned a very, very important point. See, as project managers, we often take it for granted about the organization. Okay, we take it for granted, and I'm putting up this important point here because this gives me a lead into the next important point that I'm looking at. Okay, and that is the whole question of the organization. Okay, so when you're looking at the organization, we need to say, as I'm starting my planning, is there certain important thing that is in place? Okay, as an, is the organization clear of its goals? Okay, is the organization clear in terms, let me just put it down because as I'm talking, maybe you also don't miss what I'm talking. So is the organization clear in terms of its goals? Is the organization clear in terms of what else? Of its processes. Okay. Is the organization clear in terms of what are the areas that the
Checks
organization?
and balances.
Yes, certain checks and balances. Okay, I'll put it down as certain policies. I'll give it a name for what you're saying. Checks and balances are basically the policies. Okay, so you're looking at processes, Another word for processes is systems. Okay, is the does the organization have certain systems in place? Does the organization have certain policies in place? Okay. What else would you look at when you're looking at an organization? I'm giving a background. Suppose if you approach a funder, okay, suppose you go to Oxfam, for example, or you go to Action Aid and say, please fund us for these, or you go to, for that matter, you go to any of the, international funding agencies, and you ask them and say, we would like you to consider our proposal. Okay, what is it that they would look forward to before they shortlist you as a potential partner? They would look at you as a partner. So what is it that they would look at when they're looking at as an organization? They would look at your goals, your processes, your policies. Okay, quickly we can say some of the, I'll come to that a little later. What else they would look at? Just now I told you, they would also look at what are your resources. Okay, they would look at how capable you are, right? Okay, yes. What else they would look at? They would look at your governance. They would look at who's on your trustee board, for example. I'm just putting down these points so that you'll remember. Like, for example, who's on your board? Okay. Your board. Okay. Then what are the, processes and committees and all those kinds of things of your board? Okay. Does your board meet regularly? Do you all have committees? Do you all have? So the governance is an important thing. They will also check into certain things it is called the
Statutory
organizational
compliance.
due diligence. Okay. Yes, due diligence or compliance. Good. I used the word due diligence, or another word in corporate terminology is compliance. Okay. So when you're looking at governance, they will see whether your governance has certain compliances which they are following. Okay. There will be a due diligence that the funding agency will look at, and they will look at whether do you have some of the compliance things that you will require is your trust or your society registration, your 12A registration, okay, your FCRA, your
ATG also.
ATG, yeah, and many other documents currently now required by the government, okay, like PAN card, GST, DIN.
So CSR one
PAN,
number, CSR one.
yeah, your CSR number. So you can put in all those compliance documents that you would require. Okay, all the documents that you would require with regard to your due diligence. Okay, so now when you're looking at an organization, you are going to plan. You need to see whether your organization qualifies in the first place. Does your organization qualify? So does your organization have certain goals? Your goals that you're looking at here is different from, this is the goals of the project. Let me just make a difference between the two. The goals of the project, as you can see in your screen, is different from the goals that you will have as an organization. Okay. Goals of an organization would be what, like as in? Hello. What would you consider the goals of an organization? Yeah.
Vision and mission.
That they are?
What is mentioned in the charter document?
Vision, mission. Okay, so yes, you will have certain charter documents. Okay, so you have one of the important things is your vision, mission. Okay, and another important thing is you would have your goals, as in you would have your objectives. Okay, your goal statements would be there. I would put it down as, yeah, you would have you call it goals. I'll put stroke objectives. Goals, some people call it goals objective. And there is one more important thing, which is that other thing that is important that needs to go into this place, that does your organization have certain what would you call it? Say values and principles, or what do you call it?
Ethics.
In CSR, do you all have any other terminology that you will be looking at? In social work, we call it values, principles, and
Something called business ethics.
Yeah, non-negotiable. I was trying to get a word for it. Okay, certain non-negotiables. Then you would have certain things like, say, you would also have certain things like you call it, some organization in the corporate sector, in the CSR, you all call it verticals. Okay, or you also have another word that you use is your cost areas. Any other terminology that you use in CSR?
thematic areas.
Oh yeah, thematic. Yeah, you're right. Thematic areas. Okay, thrust or thematic areas. Okay. Yeah. Now this is very important because see, today when we're looking at most of the organizations, they will talk about their, their thematic areas. You could also look at one more thing, certain competencies that your organization may be specializing in, certain competencies that are very unique.
So
in an
achievements and
organization.
awards, like
Very,
we put.
very good. Achievements and awards. Okay. Also put achievements and awards. Okay. Now, I do hope I've covered most of the points here. Goals, objectives. I'm trying to recall. Okay. But this is a very interesting point because when we are looking at an organization, we need to put this into place. Now, does your organization actually have a document along these lines? I'm asking any one of you. Does your CSR department have a document like this with you?
Yes,
What
sir.
is this document
Most of
called?
the points are covered.
Sorry, most of you? Hello? I was not able to catch what you're saying. Sorry.
Yes, I said most of the points are covered. Like we have a document.
Yeah. What do you all call that document, Kajal? For want of time, I don't want to go further. I mean, it is called a strategic planning document. Okay, you can have a strategic planning document, and it would be interesting if you can actually look at coming up with a strategic planning document yourself. Wherever you are in your organization, if you can come up with a strategic plan. Okay, so this will put into place a lot of important things that need to go in. Okay, if we have missed out, we'll come back to this because this I wanted to do as an exercise with you so that you are all on the same page with me. Okay, the time now is 11:30. Okay, shall we take a break for around 5 minutes? I think we are sitting for a long time now. Is this interesting? Hello?
Yes, sir. Very interesting.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Now, my dear friends, this is another area which I'm going to come in the latter part of my class today. So, but let's look at organic strategic planning. That is where I will take you to next. And then finally, in the last part of my class, I'll look at needs assessment in detail because that will form your assignment. Okay, so take a break of 5 minutes, roughly around 5 to 7 minutes. Take a break and come back. Yeah, I also need to drink a glass of water. Thank you. Hello, I'm back again, and I do hope you are also there in the class. Are we there? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, I think all of us are there. Let me just see. I think at least I think yeah, all of us are here. I do hope you are there in the class and also listening, as it will be. I think this one is not yet come back. Kajal is still not yet come back. Okay, I think we will continue because as soon as Kajal, yeah, she should be joining back again. Okay, so let's start. I was on the point of explaining to you about the strategic planning document. But before we go on to that, I still feel that I'll just complete some important points. I just thought I realized sometime I go a little fast. So I will once again talk about planning from some of the slides that I have so that I don't miss out on some important inputs. Okay. So I was talking to you about planning and I was saying that this planning is as per PIME project cycle. And we said in a project, we spoke about what a project is. And a project has certain elements. And we quickly looked at that elements as in a project has a goal, certain important aspects of a project, right? Uh, One of the important points of a project is that you need to know what is your goal and you need to collect some data. That's what you said. Okay, and the data needs assessment, analysis, you would do activities, strategies, I said, and certain risk. Okay, but there are many other parts of coming up with a project proposal. Okay, call it a project proposal can have a goal. It can have certain data that you analyze. Okay, as in you would be looking at. Then there would be certain activities. There would be a need to plan the strategies, and of course, you would have to have a risk assessment. Is there some things that we still miss in a project proposal? Let's look at it. Okay.
Budget.
So when you're looking at a project proposal, you're looking at a detailed plan, a project that NGOs propose to a donor. You remember I said that earlier. So you're looking at something that you would go to your donor and make a request. Okay. And usually you have a standard framework, as in every company, CSR, or if you go to a funder, for example, if you go to Oxfam, or you go to development aid charities, development charities, Charity Aid Foundation, or any of these funding agencies, okay, national and international, they would have a format, okay. The formats would be a little bit here and there, sometimes less or more, but there are certain basic elements in a project proposal format, okay. We will go into detail about that, but let's look at some of the important things that would go into when we are looking at uh, a project. You know, what would be the important things that would go into a project? That reminds me, just before we go into the whole understanding of a project proposal, I would just want to tell you that there are certain settings and types of projects, you know, as in we know different projects, like for example, you have projects that are issue specific, you know, as in you have a project that is working with migrants, for example. Okay, that is with the issue of migration. Okay, you would have a project that is working with a specific target group, like for example, Kajal said a group of physically challenged. Okay, or one of you who have mentioned that you're working with particular groups, uh, like you know the village development program. I think Kushala is doing that one with on the issue of waste management and malnutrition. Okay, I think some of these things that y'all have mentioned, Sakshi has mentioned about communication, and some of you have also worked in the issue of health. Okay, working with the cancer hospital, Priyanka had said that. Okay, so you've had various issues and specific target groups. Okay, so I would like you to understand when you're looking at the settings and the types of projects, because accordingly you would approach different funding agencies and you would approach certain, sector specific funds or, departmental funds that the government has, like, for example, funds available for the physically challenged. Okay, the government has particular schemes, so that's group specific. Okay, then there are program specific funds, like, for example, there is development. I can't get the name. There is one UK funded funding agency which gives you for programs like women empowerment programs. Okay, livelihood programs. So they have certain set programs and you would have certain funds for an event. Like if you want like to organize a particular event, like say Women's Day, there would be funds for that particular event. Okay. So, and urban and rural, I have put that way because these are mostly integrated projects. When you're working at the urban or the rural area, you would not work with one specific issue unless your organization is sector specific. Okay. So that way. Any questions along these lines? I'm just giving you a brief, touching in on a lot of points in between so that you are clear when you're writing a proposal. Okay. Then as you go further, you look at a project. Okay. So when we're looking at a project, what are we really looking at? What comes into a project? So let's quickly put that down. As I was like talking to you, a project proposal would have certain elements. Let's call it the elements of a project proposal. Okay. So if you say the elements of a project proposal, what would be the elements of a project proposal? What would you say it is? Yeah. Hello. Can I have some feelers on that? Like, for example, you said goal. Okay. You had said data you require. I mean, that would come into a project proposal. Strategies, activities, risk. What else would come into a project proposal? Hello.
There would be budget.
Oh, yes, of course. That's a very important element that we missed out on. Okay, a budget. You would have a budget that would
There
Sir,
go
would be
into.
like funding
indicators.
partners, name list of the funding
Yeah,
partners who are
networking partners
supporting
is
the
a very important thing.
organization. The whole organization is supported by these are the funding partners. So
Yeah, so you would have partners, Priyanka, both it would be funding and another set of partners also they call them. I'm putting it down just so that you remember networking partners. Okay. Or you could in a project proposal, you could also look at important stakeholders. Okay. See, these are important things that go into a project proposal. Okay. So yes,
Indicators and
you would have the
outcomes.
goal of. Okay, so indicators and outcomes would be, yeah, you would call it indicators and outcomes, yeah. What would you call that? A kind of a, yeah,
Impact.
you would call it as, yeah, let's call it, mm, I'm putting it down here. There are levels of results, okay? You have outcomes, outputs, okay? Have you would be looking at results in the projects. Okay, in any project when you're writing, you will have certain results. So you will have various results. So you will be looking at what are those results or what are those achievements that you. There would be impact level, outcome level, and then you would have output level. Okay, so you have impacts, outcomes, and outputs. These are all terms for the moment, but I will go into details of all this later. Okay. Is there any other things that you think is missing when we are looking at a project
Timeline,
proposal?
timeline, duration of the
Very good.
project.
Timeline. Maybe a yeah. Yeah, a timeline is very essential. Very true. If you look at your concept note, many of what is there in the concept note will also come into this. No. When you're looking at a project proposal, you're looking at certain information on the organization. Okay, so you're looking at some information on the organization. Yeah. So basically, in a project proposal, you're also looking at one important thing is you're looking at a log frame. Okay, I'm putting down these terms. Don't worry, I'll explain in detail. A log frame is something that will give you at a glance the entire project. And in that log frame, you'll have things like you will have the goal. Okay, you will have the levels of results. Okay, and you will have your activities also. Okay, and what else will go into it? Even your strategies. Okay, yeah, you could keep it separate if you want to, but also that too would go into it. Okay. Is there some important things that also need to go into it? Yeah. So now you have all these points here in a project proposal. What I'm trying to do is put it in a sequence so that you will be able to see it. So suppose if you're looking at a project proposal, I think many of you have handled project proposals. No? So is there some elements still missing? Yeah, we can look at a budget, of course.
Sir, in like
I'm just sequencing.
hello, sir, I'm Purna here.
Yeah.
So while preparing proposals, sir, we have one list like a documentation checklist. In that, what are the documents available with the organization? That also we put in there, like ATG, PAN card, CSR, checklist of the documentations.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a like you can call it a face sheet. Okay. So before giving anything about the organization, or you can even put it in the section of the organization, as in what are the organization, whatever you can include in the organization. You can include your checklist, as you said. Okay. Along with the organization, you can also include some of the important things like goals, the achievements, and some of the human resource of the organization. Sometimes it's good to put in, I'll put it differently. I'll put it the HR with a focus on an organogram. Okay. So if you put it like this, probably it will be a little clearer. Okay. So you have an organization, you have a checklist of documents. Documents as in who's the director, I mean, address, phone number, PAN number, GST, trust documents, 12A, all those things. Okay, that normally you can also, some people put it as a face sheet. So maybe I'll put it down here. You can also call it a face sheet. Because I've worked with many funding agencies have a kind of a before the project proposal, they have a face sheet. They call it a face sheet. In that you have an entire checklist. That checklist itself tells you whether you're eligible. So suppose if you don't have that, yeah, then you are not eligible. Sorry, my sound is not coming.
No, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Puna.
Hello.
Puma. Yes, tell me.
Hello. Sorry to disturb. What is 12A?
Yeah, please go ahead.
What is 12A?
Can I explain,
sir? It's a document that is, yeah, anybody from the class?
Yeah, it's a
Those
document
who
which
have,
a NGO, which a non-profit has, which because of which the income received by the NGO is exempted from any taxation.
yeah, yeah. So
Am I audible?
these, yeah, right. Yes, 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 yes. Clearly, thank you,
Kushala.
Kajal. I think that is
Kushala.
putting.
I'm
Sorry, Kushala.
Kushala.
Kush- Kushala. That's correct. I mean, that's a exemptions that is given by the government, as in terms of taxes to be paid because you come under the NGO sector. Okay, and then there is another one is the ATG. Okay, so these are different documents that enable you not to go under further financial burden. Okay. So if you have that, that means your entire amount which you will get from the donor agency will go to the beneficiaries. That's the reason they ask you for these documents. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Thank
fine.
you.
So yeah, most welcome. Acha, so this is roughly like, different things are there. Okay, you can put in there. Then you have the strategies, you have your risk, you have actually your data analysis, and your risk assessment will also come in your log frame. Actually, I'm putting the risk assessment because it comes in your log frame. Your strategies, your data analysis will be there. That is your uh, you can call the data as in two types of data. One is your needs analysis. Okay, you can call it, and there is one more thing called the baseline. Okay, are you aware of the baseline? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Baseline information, I'll call it baseline information. And what's a needs analysis? Just to put it into perspective, when I say you need to have certain data. Okay. When you're looking at data, you're looking at needs analysis as in you're working in a particular project area. Okay. A location, an issue. Yeah. So somebody was just saying, I think it is mapping. Yeah. So you map the entire issue or the location and you give certain, you give a context to it and you kind of chart out that information. Okay, we'll go into detail on needs analysis. And then you give a baseline is what, how is baseline different from needs analysis? What is baseline information?
Baseline is, according to me, is very quantitative, and
Yeah, I think so.
need assessment is qualitative.
Yes. Yeah, okay.
And it's
Needs assessment is, yeah, in one way qualitative. Needs assessment may also have certain figures, but basically you're right in one way because qualitative, yes. A baseline is primarily quantitative, but a baseline forms the figures or the indicators on which you will monitor and evaluate your project. That means after the project is designed, you go back to the community and you collect baseline information based on the clear indicators that come out in a log frame. I will go into details of the log frame and I'll show you how the log frame works. And you'll have certain indicators based on those activities and the outcomes sought. You will then come out with a clear baseline data on which you will monitor and evaluate the project. Okay, so that's very interesting because sometimes you could put it in a project proposal, but baseline can be at the end of after the project is sanctioned. Okay, may or may not come in a project proposal, but needs analysis definitely will come. Okay, partners, timeline. Okay, and of course budget will come, log frame will come. Is there any other important elements you think is missing?
Sir,
I
I
still
don't know
think
whether
some
it
things
is
can go into a project proposal.
yeah, I don't know whether it is important or relevant, but I've seen many proposal wherein they put in the profile of the people who would be handling the project. The managerial level people's profile is put in the proposal, maybe to ensure
Yes,
that the
yes.
project would be in the safe
Yes,
hand or
yes.
something.
Yes, yes, certainly, certainly. Yeah, so you will give out the concrete implementation of the project, or you would look at it as a, you can call it the Gantt chart, okay, or the work breakdown structure, which I will be now talking about. In corporate terminology, you call it the work breakdown structure. Okay, using a Gantt chart. In fact, I'll put it down because that makes sense because they're going to study about it. So let's put it down here. So I'm going to talk to you about a work breakdown structure. Okay, this breakdown structure will have some elements. One will be a timeline. Okay, you will have the activities in this. Okay, you will have the person response. Okay, so in this you will have, and you will have a clarity in terms of, certain, persons responsible, as in the line of command. Okay, line of command means there will be, in a work breakdown structure, I will explain to you how A relates to B, B relates to C, and C cannot move unless B finishes his task, his or her task. Okay, there will be persons responsible. So work breakdown structure is very important, and you can represent it in the form of a Gantt chart. Okay, that is another terminology that I think many of you may be familiar with. Okay, simply put, it is just an Excel sheet which gives you an entire flow of the program. Okay, in terms of actual dates, times, activities, persons responsible. Yeah, so that is. There's one more element which I feel is very important when you're looking at the project proposal, and that is the whole aspect of sustainability. Okay, see, whenever you're looking at a project, the person looking at your project will say, is this project capable of functioning after you stop your work? So you need to say, how is it sustainable? Will your project actually carry on, say, post you pull out of the area? Maybe after 2 years, will it still continue with a percentage of ownership? So in sustainability, you're looking at different aspects of sustainability. You're looking at leadership. You're looking at resources. And you're looking at another important process of ownership. Okay, so please look at these and see how does it actually work out. Are there leaders being evolved in the project that you are planning? See, I have been so much into funding, friends, students, that this comes very naturally. I used to pick up on an average, I mean, in a month, sometimes 4 to 5 projects where we actually were taking decisions on to whether this project needs to be funded or not. So in that entire process, I mean, there are so many examples that come to my mind, as in, whenever I used to pick up a project, these are one of the key elements that a funding agency will look at. Whether that project has a basis in terms of being carried on further. Okay, will the people be able to own the project up after X number of years? Okay, so that is how we look at the whole process. Yeah, is it clear? Is it coming out clear now? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I do hope I'm not sounding boring, but let's see how we can. Yeah. So coming now to this whole thing, I'll just go back to my PowerPoint because I keep forgetting about my PowerPoint. Okay, my PowerPoint is here. So we have in a project, you will have, of course, a unique set of activities. Many people call it different things. Okay, you will have a rationale, goal. Yes, rationale is something that I forgot to mention. Objectives, output, action, beneficiaries, yes, like a timeline. Okay, so we just put down this also into that list that we had there. So whenever you are writing a project proposal, you need to make sure that you convince your funder about why are you taking up this project. So what is the rationale of your project? What is it that prompts you to undertake this project? What is the purpose of your project? What do you seek to achieve? What is the change that you're looking at in the project? Okay, so these are important things that you need to put into your rationale. Then the other important thing that you can see is, okay, goal objectives, you've covered this. Beneficiaries, and of course, yeah. So yeah, this would come in actually more clearly here in terms of when you're looking at your phase sheet goals, and the organization, of course, would work at certain, yeah, it would come in the needs analysis basically also, your data, but you can put it in the organization, because when you're talking about organization, you're looking at certain goals, and if I may put it, you're looking at the location, uh, the target group, and yeah, target group and beneficiaries would be the same. Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's nice for the moment. I think I've covered some of the important points that I wanted to speak about. Okay. Yeah, so I think this is also covered in the whole project development status. I didn't have to use this slide at all. I think I've come across all this. Yeah, log frame matrix is something that we'll go on. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I think we will now say how then finally at the end of all this, if I come about with the question that I'd like to next take you to. So when I say project planning, what is really project planning? After looking at all these different areas, okay, I looked at concept note with you, then I looked at organization strategic planning, and then I looked at project proposal. What do you think is project planning all about? Yeah. Hello. So how would you put it down as? Project planning is what? It's a process of identifying what is the need of the problem, formulating a course of action, and then setting indicators to achieve those goals. Okay, so putting it in like kind of, something very clear. So you're looking at what is the need and formulating a course of action and setting indicators. So this takes me to the last point of that different things that I was showing you, is the whole understanding of need. Okay, so then we come to the whole point of needs assessment. What is the need? How do you formulate a course of action? And what would be the indicators that would show me what are the goals that I need to achieve? Okay, so most important is need, understanding what is the problem. Okay, I'll come to this slide a little later because I'll probably summarize planning in terms of advantages and disadvantages a little later. So what we did just now was a document that captures the entire planning process and the expected outcome of this process. A project is a definite endeavor having a specific start and a completion date. Okay, so all this entire process that I showed you here in this slide here, okay, as in this whole process of this project proposal, right from the first point to the last point. Okay, it has a start and an end date. So when you're looking at a project proposal, you're looking at starting at a particular time and ending at a particular time. So we are very clearly and focused. Okay, a project is also requires the organization and coordination of a group of 2 or more people to create a unique process which brings about a beneficial change or added value. And that is what I said here. A project proposal looks at, is the organization who's undertaking this capable of delivering? Okay, so when we're looking at the capability, we are looking at a strategic plan in place. Is this organization capable of delivering? Okay. So, and is it time bound and specific to a context and a problem? Okay. Okay. This strategies and activities is something I will take when I'm looking at problem at a problem tree. I mean, sorry, at the project flow. Come back to this later. Now, when I'm looking at a plan, I'm looking at different types of plans. Okay. So I'm coming back to this because this is what I would like to focus on before I go on to needs assessment. Sorry, before I go on to needs assessment. So when I'm looking at plans, you're looking at different types of plans. One is an operational plan. Okay. So usually an operational plan is something that supervisors, team leaders use, okay, to develop, kind of uh, uh, a plan that puts into place a clarity of the team. Okay. Job responsibilities. Now, a tactical plan is what we look at in terms of saying that any goal to be achieved in my department needs to be achieved through a process or a strategy. So a tactical plan is basically saying, how do I go about a particular activity? Okay, I'll give you an example. For example, a tactical plan would be, suppose if you have as part of your project the goal to create community leaders, okay, who will undertake the process of governance. Okay, so say that is your goal, that you would like to create community leaders who will take up positions of governance at various levels, whether it be at the group level in the SHGs, in the farmers groups, or at the panchayat level by becoming panchayat members, or even taking up leadership positions, or even later on getting into governance as in local governance positions. Okay. Now, suppose if you have that as your goal, what would be your strategy? How would you go about creating leaders? That would mean a tactical plan, a strategic plan, as in not like the one which I shared earlier in terms of organization, but a strategic plan to deliver a particular goal. Okay, how would you do it? If we say brainstorm and we say that in this case, a tactical plan would mean that I would need to develop the capabilities of those leaders in terms of certain leadership qualities or assigned responsibilities. Okay, so a tactical plan would mean involving the target group into taking up responsibilities assigned by the organization. Okay, in smaller groups, and later leading them through a process of training to undertake responsibilities at systematic levels of progression. Now that would be a tactical plan. Okay. Am I on the same page with everyone? Would you like to give any example from your own experience at the field? Anybody of a tactical plan? I give you one example.
Is it a plan for a specific activity, like a proposal may have multiple
Yeah,
activities
it could be a
yeah,
yes.
it is a plan for a specific activity.
Yeah,
Which you
specific.
normally, yeah, which you
Can
normally,
you give an example?
yeah, okay. Now, at present, I am doing a activity called distribution of seeds. We give seeds to the household for kitchen gardening. That is one activity
Okay.
to fight malnutrition. So I'm planning, I'm
Mhm.
doing the entire planning for that. So I think that with my
Very good.
staff, with my field staff. So I think that is the type of tactical plan.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Hmm. Okay. So how would you activate? There are 2 or 3 points in this, Kushala.
Mm.
If you understand, I'm sure you understand. Is it is just it is distribution of seeds for kitchen garden. Okay,
Exactly.
there are certain elements of this whole thing, right? Yeah, there would
Yes.
be the process of distribution would be one thing in terms of identifying the required stakeholders. And the process of ensuring that X number of seeds reaches these people. Okay, what would be the other important step? What would
The
be the other
procurement
important
in
step?
between. The procurement.
Ah, yes, that would be definite. Before distribution would come procurement. Okay.
Exactly. And
Okay,
then after
procurement of the
distribution,
lot of seeds.
yeah.
Hmm.
And after procurement, after distribution, to see that they have sown that seeds, they have used it. Home visits.
Yes, that is it. Yes, so the strategy lies in the fact that uh, you have not only distributed it, but the fact is that you have been able to see that there has been an outcome of the distribution, as in kitchen gardens that are sowed, seeds that are sown, and whatever vegetables and plants that are grown and bearing
Exactly.
fruit. So how do you ensure that it is done by a particular process? That would be a strategy. That means, would there be a training to make sure that the farmers actually plant it and use a particular manure and get the required outcomes in terms of the indicators sought? Okay, now this is a very interesting. So tactical plan is a strategy. And now when we are writing our proposal, please keep this at the back of your mind, because I'm explaining it in detail, because it's a very important point, especially when we are developing the project. As I'll just go back to my mind map here. So when you're writing a project, one of the important things, where is it gone? My strategy. Ah, I said strategies. So if you're looking at a strategy, you will be looking at, actually, we can bring strategies a little bit down. Okay, you could even bring strategies even to this. You could even put it in the log frame. As to say, if you would like a particular activities to be rolled out, what would be the strategies that you would use? Okay, so strategies are important, as in the terms of planning. Now coming back to what I was talking about. Thank you, Kushala. Tactical plan is there. Then you have a strategic plan. Strategic plan is, as I mentioned to you earlier when we were discussing, is this whole point of strategic planning. It's about an organization where you put these processes, not processes, rather a perspective into place. Strategic planning is a perspective building. It is called, another word that is used in many organizations is called an organizational development process. It's called the OD process. I'm sure you'll hear it also in some of your conversation with your bosses. We need to get into an OD process, they say. Okay. So organizational development is also along those lines. Yeah. Coming back here. Okay. So when you're looking at a strategic plan, you can begin with organization's mission, and look, this is one thing I forgot to mention. You look it over 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, or where do you want to go in the next 5 years, 2 years, 5 years? So when you're looking at strategic planning, you're leading an entire bunch of people through a process where they actually go through the process and they own the process. Okay, so that is very important. Yeah. So coming back to this again is so that is strategic plan, and contingency plan is an alternative course of action if the original plan needs to be changed, or if there is a possibility that some problem is there, then how do you change? So a contingency plan is based on your risk assessment. So suppose your risk assessment tells you that you are going to face challenges. So what is the contingency plan you have in place? I'll give you an example. Taking the same example of Kushala mentioning the whole question of buying seeds, procurement, and distribution of seeds. Now, suppose if, what would be the contingency plan I'm looking at? Now, this is a season of monsoons. Okay. So what would be the contingency plan? Contingency plan would look at the risk involved in this. You would be able to distribute seeds, okay? And you would get the required outcome of the distribution and the kitchen gardens flourishing, provided what, Kushala? What would be that? What would be the risk assessment provided?
The risk assessment here would be like the moment they sow the seeds, in case if it rains, the total seed will be
Yeah.
it will go away with the water. So we have to look
Yeah.
for the alternative.
So if so if there are 2-3 situations, either it rains too much and the seeds get washed out.
Exactly.
Okay, that is one possibility. The other possibility is that it doesn't rain at all. Okay, you put the seed and it just like you have a dry spell after that. So what do you do? Okay, so that is a risk. So what is your contingency plan that you will put into place in an event like this? So suppose if the farmer goes ahead in his kitchen garden in a small patch of say 1 gunta or whatever it is behind his house, and he puts the seeds and then it just suddenly goes into a dry spell, like off and on it's happening here. Okay, so what does the farmer do? He cannot wait till it rains continuously. Okay, so what can he do? He will have to look at an alternative. Yes, water the garden, like get a diesel pump and take down well water, or what you call it, groundwater. Utilize groundwater till the time the monsoon dry patch gets over. Okay, so that will be your contingency plan. Now, contingency plan, you may not put it in a project proposal, but in the project proposal, you will do a risk assessment. I will show it to you in the log frame. There is an element, there's a component when you're doing the outputs. There's an entire column that will be called assumptions. Okay, I will definitely explain it to you when we're looking at the log frame. There is an entire component called assumptions, and in the assumptions, you will do your risk assessment. Your risk assessment will talk about a particular activity provided that the rain does not fail the farmer. Another example, suppose you decide to create leaders. Okay, as I was giving you in the previous example, I'm going to create community leaders. Okay, these leaders would take up leadership positions in the village and would evolve plans that would benefit the growth of the village development plans. That means village development. I think if you work in the rural area, you will be familiar with the term called VDCs. They're called village development committees. Now you're creating leaders so that they will be key stakeholders in leading the village development committees. Now suppose what would be the risk here? It would be the risk would be the leaders created, then join political parties. I mean, it's nothing wrong in joining political parties, but provided the leaders, don't get into active politics that cause a harm to the project or cause a harm to the village. Okay, so then that is a risk that we will be looking at. Okay, I think I'm going to another topic. I have a tendency to deviate. Let's get back again to the planning. Okay, so we're coming to this planning and I'm in strategic planning now. As I promised, we'll go into strategic planning. So what is strategic planning? It is an organizational management activity that is used to set priorities, focus your energy and resources, strengthen operations, and ensure that the employees and other stakeholders are working towards a common goal. They establish agreement around intended outcomes, results, and assess and adjust the organization's direction in response to the changing environment. That means the strategic plan actually gets all the partners on board, right from the directors to the executive director, to the top management, to the line managers, and to the staff on the field or the field staff. So everybody in that sense becomes part of a process to own the process in terms of arriving at goals and looking at the intended outcomes. So suppose if there is a field worker, for example, he or she is your outreach worker and is actually working in the field and has to deliver. So that person will be conducting meetings for example. Okay, the field staff is conducting meetings, but the field staff should be able to have the vision of the organization and say, I'm conducting a meeting for SHGs, but this is going to impact the level of financial management and it's going to create leaders in the community. Okay, and these leaders are going to create change in the community, and accordingly, the organization's goals will be established. Now, the ground staff should be able to get into this process. And so similarly, the top management would need to have that connect with the ground staff. So this is what will happen in strategic planning, that everyone comes to a point where their focus becomes clear and they are part of a process towards achieving those common goals. Okay. So what is this process that I'm talking about? This process is basically a way of reflecting back on what has been the impact in the past. So it's like, you start a strategic planning, you say, what have we achieved so far? Okay. We listen to it and say, okay, what can we do better in terms of improving our relationship with our stakeholders, of getting our team together so that we function effectively, and we can get the entire organization together so that no department is pulling apart away from the project. We prioritize our focus and energies to make sure that we are achieving what is the mission of the organization. So that is in short a strategic planning process that we're looking at. Okay. So coming back again here so that so what we're looking at is that everyone goes through this process of understanding goals, vision, and understanding these things so that they are on board with the entire process. Okay, so coming now to this, we look at the next important thing is the elements of a strategic plan. Like you rightly said, strategic plan involves of clarifying the vision and mission. And I think we missed out one very important point when we are talking about mission and mission. We need to understand who are the visionaries behind an organization. That is, who are the founders of that organization. I think I need to put it down here. So when we're looking at the vision and mission, we also look at one more important element of this is the founders. I'll just put it down. The founders, because we need to go back. If I'm sure each one of you, when you joined your organization, you underwent an orientation. Whenever you joined your organization, you would have had a 2-day, 4-day, depending upon your organization, you would have had an orientation. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Do you remember? Yeah. I think most of us, even I have worked with various organizations during my career, and in these organizations, I remember there was one orientation that I had when I joined Caritas. It was 7 days. You will not believe it. I mean, 7-day orientation program, wherein they oriented me to various departments, and it's of course a national level organization. So I was very privileged, and I really came to know a lot of things because you get into the organization very the whole thing. So it's important that these things take place. There I was introduced to the founders and saying, okay, these are the founders. This was their vision. This were the people who actually started the whole process. Okay, so the founders become a very important part. Yeah. Now, knowing what brought about change. Okay, so whenever you're looking at strategic planning, you don't start off with a clean slate. Remember what I'm saying? When you're doing strategic planning, you don't start off by saying, okay, let's start by saying, come, we'll start from a fresh. No. You need to say, where are we? You need to put your question into the group and say, where are we now? What have we achieved so far? What have we been addressing? Okay, what is current programs? So what we're looking at is what's the existing problems? How have we been approaching these existing problems? Okay, like for example, if you have been working on the health issue, okay, Priyanka, if you've been working on that, I think Priyanka was the one, I'm forgetting. Okay, so you have been looking
Yes,
at,
sir.
say, the health, what has been the programs associated, with the issues on that? Okay. What is it that actually brought about change when you were working on that issue? And did our strategy make a difference? So you will start off, as I said, not with a blank slate, but by saying, where am I now? What is our current status? Okay. What is the changes that we have been able to bring about in the community, and what can we do better? That leads us to the next step. Okay. Another important thing is, when we're looking at strategic planning, is to say, what is the current environment around us? Okay. What is the current environment around us? As in, what is the political, economic, social, technological, okay, and other factors, environment. Okay. So what is the current situation in the world today? Is it impacting our project? Now you will say, how will a project get impacted by other factors? Okay. Yes, you need to put into perspective. There are certain things, like, say, for example, just to give you an example, a political situation of the government at the moment in India is impacting the way we run our projects. Okay. I'll give you a small example. Like, I know many organizations receive funds, okay, and many of them receive funds from abroad. Okay. Now, a change in a government policy on FCRA has impacted the NGO sector quite a lot, especially those who have been receiving international projects. Okay. Now, the FCRA rules have made it, have put into perspective a lot of important things according to the government, but also at the same time, many NGOs have faced. So this environment has led a lot of NGOs into an ostrich stand, as it were. They started looking inward. Okay, they said, hey, let's get our act together. Have we been doing our processes of finances well? I think some of you are in the finance, so you'll know what I'm talking about. Like, is our finances in the right place? Okay. So you need to look at how is the environment affecting you. Okay. Economic changes, small things like the economic changes in terms of interest rate. Does the interest rate impact the project? Yes, it does impact. Certain other economic policies of the RBI, does it impact your project? Of course. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So many of us would know this and be able to connect, because if you are working with the admin department or if you're working with the finance in your project, you will be able to immediately connect and say, yes, there is an impact. It is affecting stakeholders. Okay. So a pestle analysis is something that you can look at in the strategic planning. Another important analysis that you can look at is the SWOT analysis. I think all of us are familiar with the SWOT analysis. I think strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Okay. I'm going quickly over it so that, I think all of us are familiar with it, but I'll come to it in another slide. Actually, all these I'm going to deal with in another slide. So write down, I'm coming back to it. Now, when you're looking at a strategic plan, basically we are looking at developing a plan. So the entire class today is on developing a plan. So what is this plan? It is arriving at a mission. So how do you arrive at a mission? How do you arrive at the mission statement, or how do you arrive at the vision statement? Okay. How do you frame that vision mission statement? How do you come about in understanding the areas of intervention? How do you say, okay, now let me see, can I understand which area should I undertake? How do I know that? Is there a way to understand what should I take up? Is there a need to redesign my organization structure? I know in a strategic plan, very often, organizations have rearranged their organizations, as in to say their reporting structure, their functioning structure, especially sometimes working in the field and working in the office, working offline or working online. Okay, the whole structure changes in an organization. Listing the resource basis. Okay, this is another thing when we're looking at strategic planning. We are looking at what is the resources that I have. In order to plan, we need to be very practical. We need to say, hey, where do I stand with regard to my resources? Do I have enough of resources to survive the projects that I want to undertake? Can I do justice? Okay. And another important thing is to form a change management committee. That means to get people who are change makers in particular slots of particular handling particular core or thematic areas. Okay, so you get people to move along those dramatic or systemic changes in an organization. Okay, let's go ahead. I think, is it clear this so far what I have been trying to talk? Hello.
Yes, sir.
I think now it's time. Yeah, now it's time for us probably to look at something practical. Okay, so I'm now going into another practical dimension of the strategic planning, and I'm going to ask you, will it be possible for you to evolve a strategic plan very quickly in one way? So how do you actually go about evolving a strategic plan? So suppose in your organization, the CEO or the director calls you and says, okay, you'd like to work out and say how can we work at a strategic plan? Can we work at a strategic plan so that we are clear and focused for the next 2 years, for the next 5 years, or for the next 10 years? Okay, how can we do that? So in the next slide I put across is what is the process that we can look at in terms of a strategic planning process. So just give me a minute. I'll just take a break for 2 minutes. I'll just drink some water. In the meanwhile, you can think about it. Like if I say, if you are going for a strategic planning process, what do I need to do? Okay, if I'm developing a plan, how do I actually go about it? Okay, think about it, jot down your ideas. I'll just drink a glass of water and then I'll continue. Okay, I'm back again, and I think I'm good to go. Okay, so when we're looking at a process of strategic planning, let's look at the kind of steps so that will make it easy for you to follow up. So suppose in your organization boss calls you and says, Chal, let's see what we can do together and evolve a strategic plan. So how do we go about it? What would be the first thing to do? We would need to say in a strategic plan, okay, let's take this off to another page. Let me see if I can do that. Uh, I think I've taken it by mistake outside the page. Okay. I've forgotten how to take it out. Anybody knows that how you can take it to a next page, you know? Okay. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Okay. So now this is, we have this with us. What I wanted to do is, how can we, what would be the steps involved in taking this and making this a reality? If this is the document I want to arrive at, how would I actually go about it? What would I do first? What would I do second? Or rather, how would I go about it? How would I plan for a strategic plan? Or rather, how would I work out a strategic plan? Anybody? Yeah. What would I do first, as in to start the process?
Prepare an activity plan, like the list of activities that one has to do.
Okay, so you kind of prepare an activity plan. Yeah. Okay, so in order to get this moving, you prepare an activity plan. Yeah, you will go about. Okay. You would say like sequence what you need
Yeah,
to,
sequence
what
out
you
the
need to pick out
activities
and all those
and
kinds of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
correct. The number of documents that you require for each of these activities. So just highlighting those in that plan.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I take that. I think that's a good point that you mentioned. Yeah, so you kind of be clear about what do you need to cover. So suppose if you say, I'll put it in another way, prepare an activity plan, or we can look at it in another way and say, create a kind of a status, you know, um, get an understanding of the status, understanding of the
Yeah, like
current
like
status of the organization. Okay, isn't it?
yes.
Yeah, so suppose if you say like say you want to know what would be the status of, like you mentioned,
So
the
like for vision
documents.
and
Okay,
mission, we will
so
have to get like some documents which help us to arrive at that. And we'll have to, have that dialoguing with the management. So there'll be like list of activities across each of these components that will have to be conducted.
okay, yeah, so you will actually look at what you need to do, as in suppose if it is to know about what is the current status about documents, about certain things, that you need to say, okay, where are we at the moment, okay, to get a current status. Okay, yeah,
Sir,
so I think we're moving along the right way. Uh,
shall we start with the
yes.
details of the organization, its establishment date, then followed by the information about the founder, followed by its vision and mission statement,
Mhm,
probably the values,
mhm.
principles, ethics, and after that,
Okay.
probably the governance, like it's registered under so and so act and all that. Uh,
Okay. Yes.
before the governance, I think the policies would be a better option. Uh, followed
Yeah.
by the followed by the uh, followed by the the resources. I mean resources. I mean the people at top level, and the uh, work till now they have done. The organization has done the projects or the reach and all that.
Yeah. So
I
what you're
hope
saying is the
I.
achievements. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Whatever
the
they have
number.
achieved.
Like we have touched so many lives or something like that. I
Yeah.
think I don't know whether I'm
Yeah.
going
Yes.
right,
Yes.
but this is
Achievements.
the flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
You're on the right track.
this is the flow, and
So basically, you would need to say,
yes, sir.
yeah, I think you're on the right track because whenever you're looking at an organization, you need to say, where are you at this moment? You remember in the last slide, which I said, so you need to get a hold of saying, where are you at the moment? So you get a hold of whatever is your current status as an of the organization. Yeah. So I think then there is one more important thing that we need to put into place even before you start the current status of the organization and understanding. You need to say, you need to get a very good clarity on this, and that is to say, um, you know, who will be on board. So suppose if I put it actually as I'm talking to you, who will be part of the process? Now, this is a very strange question that I'm asking you. Who will be part of the process of preparing the strategic plan? Okay, who will be part of the process? This is a question. That's why when I was explaining to you the previous slide, I'm sure you must have taken your own jottings, your own points. So who will be part of the process while preparing the document? So we're looking at, will it be the top management? Who will be part of the process of preparing a set? Now, this is very interesting because very often many organizations say, oh, we want to prepare a strategic plan. And so what do? They call the top management, like the bosses will sit down, the directors, and say, okay, yeah, let's look at this, let's look at that, let's look at the vision mission statement. So what do we actually do? Is it just top management? According to me, we need to look at important stakeholders. I'll call it that way, important stakeholders. See, the organization has certain key stakeholders. Who are your key stakeholders? You need to identify those key stakeholders and say, can we make them part of the process in some way, wherein we take a feedback, and that feedback will then feed into the strategic planning document that we want to arrive at. We want to arrive at what will be the deliverables, what will be the mission, what will be the goals. But we cannot arrive at it unless we consult the people who are at various levels of the organization. Who are those various stakeholders? Those stakeholders will
So
be your
are you
beneficiaries.
sorry
Okay.
to interrupt. Are you saying that before preparing the strategic
Yeah.
document, we have to complete the SWOT analysis?
Yes.
Am I audible,
I'm
sir?
coming to that. You need to do a SWOT analysis. Now that is the way you will do it. Like suppose if you're sitting with your stakeholders, you will say, can we say what is it that you like about it, organization? Where is the organization limping? Where is the processes getting held up? Okay, you can do a SWOT analysis. That is a good tool. Okay, so that brings me to the point of saying when we're looking at a strategic planning document, you're looking at certain tools to be used. One of the tools you rightly said is you're looking at the tools of SWOT analysis. Okay, you're looking at SWOT analysis. We'll put down other tools that also we need to put into place. So as I was telling you, one of the important stakeholders would be the beneficiaries. Who are the other important stakeholders? There would be, who else? Those who impact your project positively or negatively. Remember that. I'm putting it down both. It is possible you would positively impact the project. Okay, I'm putting it down that way. So who are those stakeholders that positively impact the project? You can think about it. Like, for example, if you're working with children and if you're working for the education of children, you would be saying, yeah, maybe for my project, if I consult the parents and say, what is it that the parents see as important that would need to be done in order for this aspects to be highlighted in the organization? Okay. Then there would be important stakeholders who negatively impact the project. Now, looking at negative impacting the project. What do I mean by negatively impacting the project? Those whose presence will harm the project. Can you give me an example of negative stakeholders? Okay, I'm not saying completely negative. Say, like, for example, the same thing about children. Police. Now, police, the child gets scared of the police. Police can be a deterrent for the child's progress. Okay. Or for the child's progress, an abusive parent can be a deterrent for, or can be a harmful factor in the growth of your beneficiary. Okay.
Political
so,
parties.
Yeah, political parties, police, some kind of, traders that could harm schools. Like, for example, there is a panwala shop outside your school. Okay. Or who's selling gutka and who's selling whatever. So that is an impacting the process. So you could also look at stakeholders that we need to be aware of and can we get them in. I'm not saying completely get them into the process, but see how you can also look at them as impacting the project. Okay, you can see how they can become part of the process. Maybe you can look at positively more, negatively you will see how you can get sometimes their feedback. Like, say, government. I'm not saying government is negative, but the fact is that sometimes when you include a government stakeholder, you can get another perspective which sometimes negatively impacts your project. Okay. Perhaps the government is looking, I'm just giving you an example. It's off the cuff. It's like, say, the government is looking at certain processes that need to be put in order for compliance. Now that is a negative. You look at it as negative because right now you cannot afford that much of compliance. But that is important. Then see how that can impact your project and your organization. Okay. These are some thoughts that come to my mind. Of course, you can add to the whole process. Okay. Now, these are important things. Who will be part of the process? What is the tools? What is the current status? Of course, prepare an activity plan. Now, let's get back to my presentation, and I'll just tell you. Okay. As I was telling you, the strategic planning process will include a few important points. Decide who will be part of the process in the planning of the strategic plan. In the group exercise, identify participants with various roles in the organization. Okay. For example, let's get back to my drawing board. For example, here another important thing which I forgot to mention is staff. Okay, suppose you are looking at your staff in your organization. Suppose you consult your staff and you get them to think, and they can be one of the main people who will actually feed into your strategic plan. So you consult them and say, what is it that you need to, they play an important role in the organization, and you say, okay, what about this project? What about this issue area? What about this goal? What do you think should be the goal of the organization? Where do you think the organization should work? Like, for example, you're working with children and you're working with, say, education of children. Okay. And then the staff who are very much in the field will tell you that perhaps education is not the only important point that you need to work on when you're working with the children. You need to look at ensuring that they are provided with nutrition. Now, unless a child is provided with a glass of milk or say some kind of nutrition, the child is not able to concentrate on the education classes that you are so beautifully preparing. Okay, your organization is giving fantastic modules, whatever it is. But then the child is hungry and therefore cannot concentrate, and your staff will tell you. Now that is the feedback that the staff will be able to plan and will be able to contribute to your plan and say there is a mistake in the planning process. Maybe we are missing the mark somewhere. Okay. Okay. So as I was telling you, next step is to say, the existing vision, mission, objectives, and the values of the organization. That means you will be saying, where are we? What is the current vision and mission? And we'll be looking at those vision and mission. We are not changing it. We are just going to look at it and say, does this vision and mission actually, how does it hold for us today? Okay. For that, we need to do a needs assessment of the current status of the organization. That means we need to check about existing information available. Okay. As in what is happening about the current projects that are taking place. Do a SWOT analysis and say what is the internal strengths and weaknesses of the organization. Does the organization compromise on some of its values in the context of the culture that is changing? Okay. Like in COVID, what has happened is, okay, we've had to change strategies literally. I know NGO sector had to change a lot of strategies because of the situation. Okay, there were certain problems that they were facing. Okay, internally, externally is the opportunities and the threats. Okay, that has to be the SWOT analysis needs to be done well. Okay, then another needs assessment has to be done of the target group and issues. Okay, let me put it down so that you also are able to see. One is get a current status. Then you need to look at what is target group and the issue. So we need to say that which is the target group that we are looking at. Okay, are we addressing the needs of the right target group? Okay, or do we need to look at alternatives? Okay, what is the issue are we addressing? Are we addressing the right issue? Maybe the issue needs to be tweaked a little bit, or the issue is perhaps we are looking at education, but education needs to be coupled with health and nutrition. So we need to tweak the issue in order to tweak the area of our intervention in terms of the issue. Okay. For that, you need to do an analysis of the problem. Okay. So we need to do a problem analysis and we need to say what has been done with regard to that issue till date. That means in order to get an idea of what has been the issue and have we addressed the real problems faced by the target group with regard to this issue, we need to do a problem identification. So a process that involves a problem identification. Okay. What is this problem identification? Anybody who has been undergone this process of problem identification? Have you actually gone through a process of problem identification? What is problem identification? Anybody? Hello? Any one of you? Priyanka? Or maybe some of you who are there? Tanvi? Almin? You have not spoken, I think, today.
No, I haven't.
Anything on problem identification? Okay,
Sir, I just want to
problem
like
identification? Yeah, go
yes,
ahead.
I cannot. I'm Purna here. So I don't know the exact definition, but what we do is that in our sector, like we work for the hearing impaired. So as per our data analysis and our research and everything, we were able to get that across Mumbai, the deaf don't have proper facility of higher education. So we have gone through the data research, visiting from schools and all. So the higher education from 10th, 11th, 12th, that is not here. So that way we found a project which gives higher education, a junior and degree college. That was the main problem. There was no access to proper education for deaf. That's why we started a project for degree and junior college. Like this is how we identify. I don't know, I might be wrong, but I don't this is what I get, problem
Yeah.
identity.
No, I understand. I got a crux. I got a hold on what you're saying. So the hearing impact needed to be there. They needed to have access to higher education. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So that was what your needs analysis was showing you, or other. That is what how you identified. That means you're saying
Yes.
they did not have an access to higher education.
Yes, exactly.
The hearing impaired. So what you're saying in short, is basically you are saying is that the hearing impact were not able to
Seeing like what
access
we
education.
yes, yes, the higher education is available, but they cannot sit with the, like we call in our terms, we are hearing, like as we are called normal people now, we term us as hearing. So the deaf people cannot go to a hearing college like a normal college. So they want a college where there is someone who can teach them in sign language. So that it makes them understanding much more clearer. So maybe that way we have uh, implemented a project where the teachers also have a knowledge of sign language and where they can interact with them, and the students are also able to understand and grasp the learning and be educated. This is what we found. There are colleges, but nobody is giving
Yes.
training in sign language, higher education. That's why.
Okay. So what you did is very interesting. Sorry, what was that? Yeah. So that is what Puma was saying, no? Puma. Yeah, Puma. So
Purna.
Puma, you were saying very interestingly.
Purna.
Yeah.
Purna.
Purna.
Purna. Yes.
Sorry. Acha, it is not Purna. Acha, Purna. I heard Puma.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I saw it as Purna. Okay, yeah, Purna. Okay, now I got it. Acha, Purna, that's a nice name. Huh? Purna means, yeah. So Purna, it's a very interesting point that you have mentioned. See, I would like to put it down. In fact, as you were talking, I already had my pen and paper in my hand, and I was trying to put it down into a map. Let me see if I can get this map of my, are you familiar with apps, those in the class, like mind maps, which I'm using now? Are you familiar with mind maps?
Not
Maybe.
pretty much like.
Yeah. Okay. Not. Yeah. No problem. So I'm using mind maps in order to capture what you're saying and also lead you to the learning process. Okay. Now I'm doing this so that we can actually go down to a very important part today. See, I'll just put it down as, let me see. This is called, see, there are different types of mind maps. This is okay. Now, suppose if I take your point that you mentioned just now, Purna, is that you were saying is that hearing impaired, okay, cannot access solutions of higher learning. Okay. Now, what I'm doing is a very, very quick problem tree. What is a problem tree? You know what's a tree, no? A real life tree. A real life tree consists of what? It consists of a trunk,
Branch,
and it consists of
trunk, branches.
branches. Yeah, it consists of branches and it consists of roots. Now, this is a tree where we will focus on the root, on the trunk, and we'll focus on the roots. Okay. Now, Purna, as you are talking about, have I captured it right? In a problem tree, what you will be doing is basically you are capturing the issue as faced by the target group. Okay. So hearing impaired cannot access institutions of higher learning, right? Yeah. So now what
Yes,
is
sir.
the
Yes.
reason you mentioned? Yeah. Why can't they? Because they are unable to uh, uh, learn,
So there's
because the
no
learning
communication. Like the major issue is the communication. So
please
for
say.
communication,
Yeah.
major issue where they cannot understand.
So they cannot understand what is being communicated. Okay, let's put it down as simply as that. Okay, they cannot understand what is being communicated. What is the other reasons why they cannot access higher education?
So majority what we have been looking, there are students who are coming from below poverty line and they cannot afford that much fees. So our institution gives free
Okay.
education. We don't charge a single penny from the deaf,
Uh,
and we give them free education.
Students cannot afford higher education. HEI means higher education. That's a common acronym. Okay, cannot afford institutions of higher education. Okay, higher education institutions, they're called. Okay, any other reason that you see why they cannot, hearing impaired cannot access high institutions of higher learning?
So there's no teacher of like sign language, which is actual language. The way they communicate is sign language. So people are not aware. Most they think like just giving them a hearing aid helps them, but it's not like that. They communicate much proper in sign language. So we have teachers who are graduated and have that much capable. They're capable of
Yeah.
teaching the subject in sign languages. So that makes a safe and
Okay.
secure
So
environment for them, so they can connect also.
yes. See, now we will stay on this because for the lack of time, I don't want to go too much because I want you to learn it as a skill also. Okay. Uh, Coming up with a problem tree is a very interesting way of, you know, of understanding how we go about. So first thing is, you notice one characteristic of all these statements. Can you tell me what is common in all these statements?
So
Okay, what
common
Communication.
is
as
common
in
in all these statements?
communication. Major is the
Yeah,
communication issue.
say don't worry, you're not. Acha, that is, communication is one of the points that is common. Okay, you notice all these statements are negative. Students cannot
Yes.
understand what is being communicated. Sorry, sir. What is being communicated? Okay. See, in working on a problem tree, what do you have to do? You have to tell the actual situation. That means a problematic situation or the issue that you are facing. Okay. So they cannot, why they cannot access institutions of high, you have to ask the question why. Okay. The reason why. What is the cause? Hearing impaired cannot access education, higher education because they cannot understand what is being communicated. Or they cannot afford, or the teachers who are there in higher education cannot communicate. Okay, they cannot communicate in sign language. Okay, now tell me one thing is, why can't they understand what is being communicated? Why is the hearing cannot understand um, hearing impaired? Okay, I'll call it the HIs. Okay, why can't
So we call it
hearing
deaf. That
impaired?
will be easier. The term is deaf. We use it deaf, so you can
Yeah,
use
yeah.
it.
Okay, okay. the deaf cannot understand what is being communicated. So suppose if you say that, what is the reason? Why can't they understand what is being communicated?
Because most of the students who are from the background, like they have zero or very little less knowledge of English. So even they write and the we cannot understand. They don't have a proper grammar in English. So even if they want to communicate, they should have some basic knowledge. And in most of the schools across Mumbai, it's a vernacular medium. So that is also an issue.
But
Language.
please understand. Yeah. No, Purna, you're making a good effort. What I'm trying to do is to teach you a skill, and all those in the class, I do hope you're listening, because this is a skill that I'm teaching you in order to come up with a problem. See, this is very essential now. What I'm teaching you is essential not only for strategic planning, it's also essential for coming up with a project, and important for needs assessment. It's fulfilling 3 points. Okay. Now, when you're looking at a problem tree, okay, you need to ask the question why, and you need to come up with the cause of it. Okay. Now, suppose if I say I'm using a, please listen very carefully. Yeah? I know this is an online medium, but it's very difficult sometimes. I understand, but try and get what I'm saying. Now, this is the cause of this, Purna. Okay, language of communication is English. Therefore, the deaf cannot understand what is being communicated. Do you think this is really the reason why the deaf cannot understand what is being communicated?
I think so, lack
What
of
is the reason
awareness.
why they cannot? Yeah. Think another one clue I'm giving you, Purna. Think like as if you are deaf. Why is it that you cannot understand what is being communicated? One is you're saying language of communication is English, so you don't understand English. One thing is that. What is the other reason why you being a deaf person cannot understand? Okay, let me put it. Physical.
I don't hear anything.
Physical deformity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Physical inability to hear. Okay. Yeah, that means there is a what do you call it? A scientific, physical, or not scientific, health reason. There's a health reason because the eardrums are bursted or whatever it is. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now I'm giving you a principle on which to check out whether what you are saying is the cause of this, of the deaf cannot understand. Okay, so you're saying physical inability. Now I'm giving you a principle. It's called the if and then principle. You can use it carefully whenever you're using up or doing a problem tree. Now suppose if I say if I'm able to make the hearing impaired, the deaf person, give him a hearing aid, you think he will be able to understand what is being communicated?
So that's what I was saying, that this is a very short thing. I think out of the topic. The deaf, we do give them hearing aids, but that creates a noise inside their head, like a very sharp shooting noise. And if a person is like 70% deaf, so the hearing aid is not of any use. So it depends on the percentage of their deafness. So
Okay.
that from the initial year, which we call early intervention, from there, if the parents have, or mostly parents get to know that their child is deaf like when they're after 3 to 4 months, or approximately after 2 years also, the parents are able to understand that he's a deaf, born deaf. So maybe a lack of awareness is also a reason. Parents are also not aware what should be the early intervention, where in later stages of life the hearing aid will help the child, but initially if they don't give that much attention, so the percentage increases, and from partial deaf to full, then the percentage of that deafness is also, with the age it grows. So hearing aid is not of that use. They create irritation and type of noise, so it gives them a headache. So that is not of that much use, sir, if there's no early intervention with the child.
Okay, yeah. So Purna, I got what you're saying. So parents have not undertaken early intervention. That's the reason uh, they are physically unable to hear. So basically, you're saying that if parents had undertaken early intervention, then they would have had the physical ability to hear. And possibly they would be able to understand what is being communicated. But you're saying that even see, so I'm trying to understand. Maybe the class is not the best time to understand the real issue. But what I'm saying is that try to look at this thing is that whenever you're looking at a cause of a problem, okay, you need to look at the if and then principle. Okay, I'm putting it separately just here so that you will be able to remember that I need to ask that if the language of communication is Marathi. Now suppose I'm changing it. If and then if you're saying if it is English, then they cannot understand. So suppose if I say the language of communication is Marathi, then you think the deaf can understand what is being communicated?
So what I feel is, so Priyanka here, I think what I feel is if the person is do not have a physical ability to hear, then whatever the language we speak in, the person will not able to understand unless that physical disability is corrected
Yeah.
either
So
with
that
the surgery or the hearing aid. So after that, the training or maybe when the treatment takes place,
then
as it is needs to be at the early stage or whatever it is.
okay,
The bottom line is
fantastic.
ki if the person is
Okay.
deaf,
So I think
then
we are now coming.
communication cannot
Yeah.
establish, right?
Okay. So I think would you agree to the screen that I'm sharing? Would you agree to the logic in these points that I'm talking about? So
Yes, sir.
I agree to the
you're saying
logic,
that
physical.
yeah.
So
So you're saying
Priyanka
that
here,
this would
I'm agreeing to
yes,
the
Priyanka.
physical inability to hear point, not about the language of communication. If the person is not able to hear, the person will not able to speak at all. So basically, being a deaf, that is the main cause of a person is not able to communicate.
Okay. So this okay. So maybe yeah. What you're saying is Purna saying about language of communication sometimes could be also an issue. So therefore they cannot access educations. Okay. Also maybe this could be one of the base reasons. Language of communication is English, or
Yes.
therefore they cannot access higher education.
So I don't know. I have, as I was I'm working in a health sector. I have seen the children who are deaf now are doctors, now are in the higher positions. So the language of communication actually starts if there is an ability to hear with the hearing aid or any other surgery. Then the child will able to
Okay.
access all the languages, whether it's Hindi, Marathi, English, French, Japanese, anything. This is what I understand, like whatever that I have experienced with.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, just let's. I know sometimes our reasoning can be differing to one another because our experiences are different in different communities. Okay, but you get the whole process of a problem tree. In a problem tree, you need to say what is the issue that you're working on. Okay, you need to put down that and you need to put it down into a negative statement, right? Yeah. And then you need to say what are the causes of it. Now this will become the first level. Let me put it down as a floating topic. So this is the first level. Okay. The first level. Okay. So this is the first level. I mean to say that this is getting connected. Should not connect. Okay. So this is the first level is this, this is the first level. Okay. And then you have consequently, you have other level of reasoning. The roots will go down and down. So suppose if you say, I'm just assuming now forget about the actual situation. Just let's assume that hearing impaired cannot access education because they cannot understand what she said. And the language of communication is English. Let's suppose that these the hearing impaired are coming from communities, from Marathi speaking communities. Okay. So because it is in English, they cannot understand. Okay. So why is why is the language of communication is English? Okay. Why is it so? Because the institutions have a policy to communicate in English. I'm just saying now this is the reason. Okay. And not vernacular. Giving you a reason. Please understand that I may stand to correction in these reasons, but let's take it for the argument's sake. Okay. Now students cannot afford higher education in institutions. Why? Because they come from say they come from lower and income groups. Let's call it that way. Lower income groups. Okay. They come from lower income groups. And teachers of higher education cannot communicate in sign language because why? What would be the reason? Because why do you see? They have not been taught language. Yeah. Okay. Just suppose if that is the reason. Like say I do not know sign language. I'm a teacher of higher education. I don't know sign language because I've not been taught sign language, or probably because I have not felt the need to learn sign language. Okay, because I've not had actually deaf students in my class. Okay. So I'm just giving you some reasons. Okay, you may agree or may not agree to the reasons. Yeah, I think somebody's talking, but his voice is not coming very clear. Okay. So what I would like to tell you that this reasoning would go, you need to go deeper and deeper into the causes. Okay. And you need to work this out. So this is a kind of this is called a problem tree, and a problem tree is negative. This is called the first level, and then you have the second level, then you have the third level. Your reasoning can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And when you're doing that, as I mentioned to you earlier, you need to look at the if and then principles. That means you need to say, if institutions have a policy to communicate in vernacular language also, you think it would improve the language of communication in higher education? And if it is so, then probably the hearing impaired will be able to access higher education. Isn't that true? Okay. If students came, if they had a little bit more income, do you think they could afford higher education? Yeah, probably. If they had access to higher a larger income, then they would be able to access higher education, and then they would be able to not face problems. Okay. Teachers, of course, I gave you these examples. Yeah, tell me, is my reasoning correct or am I going off the mark?
Sir, can there will be one more reason? There are no as such government policies or schemes for such group which are introduced and needs to be implemented in the institutions. So no proper policies or no proper implementation of the policies for the physically disabled or hearing impaired. So that could be also one of the reasons. because teachers are not taught sign language and all when we are talking about this. So
Yeah, these can
because
be. Yeah. Okay. So the government does not have a policy in place to favor the hearing impaired. Okay. Okay. So this is also could be one of the reasons. Okay.
so this could
So
include
awareness
the
is
higher
also
So in this
fund.
sense, you'll be able to. Yeah. So why is the government did not have a policy so far, or did not have a scheme so far? Because the government was not sensitized.
it's a lack of
Okay,
awareness.
the
Like
government was not sensitized. The government was not sensitized or did not was not aware. Okay, uh, yeah, the government did not feel the need. Government did not feel the need of, okay, for having such a policy. Okay, so why I'm showing you this is, students, is that whenever you are looking at writing a strategic plan or a project proposal, this is a very basic, what you call it, a tool that you can use. Okay, you can look at a very basic tool that, sorry, this is a very basic tool that you can use, or a rather a basic, yeah, you can call it a tool only, that will help you to analyze the problem faced by the target group. So you look at the causes and you put the main issue here. Okay. And then you go down and down till you reach a saturation point. Now you could have many reasons, and accordingly you can look at. So what will happen with these things? With this, you will be able to look at, these are all negative. Can you see us? You can see the screen. Deaf cannot understand what is being communicated. Okay. Because of their inability to hear, physical inability to hear, because the parents have not taken intervention. Okay. Because they don't have any other language that they understand. Okay. Okay. So each of these reasons are negative. You notice that they are negative. Now, once we understand this and once we put this in place, this becomes an important tool for us to analyze further. So how does the analysis go? Our analysis go this way, that this statement once can be made positive. So suppose that we take the same thing. Okay. Now we take this entire map here. Okay. Suppose if we just copy all these, suppose if we select all the topics, select all, and then we take it on to another page. Sorry. Suppose if we take it into another new page. Okay, so we take a new page of a tree map. Okay, now what will happen is, okay, so this is my same thing. Now suppose if I have to make this positive, can anybody help me to make this whole thing positive? So suppose if I say hearing impaired cannot access institutions of higher learning. So how will you make it positive? Hearing impaired. Yeah. Freely access institutions of higher education. Right? That can become a positive statement. Yeah. Now,
Yes.
yes,
this is a negative statement. Yeah. Now, deaf cannot understand what is being communicated. So what is the positive statement? Deaf begin to understand. Okay. Deaf understand what is being communicated. Why? Here, can you change it? Physical inability to hear. So what will you say? If have no physical impairment. Okay. Then parents have undertaken early intervention. I have not taken. This will change to
Early detection.
parents
Early
have
Taken early
parents
intervention.
undertake. Yeah. So parents undertake early intervention. Okay. Now this is now I'm sure this you'll say, Ari, this is so easy. Now why is sir explaining all this? Now you will understand that this map that we saw is a negative map. And now this map is a positive map. Once you do the negative problem tree, you have to simply change it to an objective tree. And there you have your entire analysis. What is your entire analysis? This will become your goal statement. This will become what? Your project goal. What is your project goal? Your project goal is hearing impaired freely
Provide.
access. Yes. So to provide it will become an objective, but you are looking at a goal. So you will say what? 2000 hearing impaired freely access institutions of higher education by, okay, so when you're writing a goal, you'll also make it a SMART goal, okay, by 2025. Okay, here you'll say 2000 impaired students freely access institutions of higher learning by 2000. How does this sound now? Tell me. Good, no? There you have your goal statement. You have your project clearly focused. What is this? This becomes your first level of outcomes. That means you will need to work on these outcomes to achieve these outcomes. Okay. Here you need to change it to positive, like as I was saying. Students can afford. Okay. Here you will say they come from lower income groups. That means lower those from lower income group have improved there. Okay. You can say what will become the positive statement. You can say, you cannot say that they come from higher income groups, but you can say yes.
So now like very minimal fee
Please,
or fees, minimal fees so that they can afford like fee structure, minimal fees for them or entirely free for them. So that's
okay.
Help them to.
Yeah. So low income groups have to pay minimal fees. Okay, then they can afford this. Okay. They have not been so how can this teachers of higher education like myself, so they can communicate in sign language? That means they are taught, they have been taught. So you just change the negative into they have been taught. That means then they have felt the need that higher education teachers now feel, okay, higher education institution teachers felt the need to learn sign language. Okay, now I will now take you to this and say, now tell me one thing. This is a positive thing. That means this you are seeing as outcomes in your project and in your organization. You're able to work with the deaf and you're able to work with teachers. They are becoming your two important stakeholders. Okay, so now what you will need to do is to say, what are the activities that I need to do so that I am able to achieve these points which I'm clicking on? How can I achieve the point of teachers undertaking sign language and communicating in sign language? How can that happen? How can that happen? So what activity can I do? Give me an example of what can I do in each of these. Please participate, students. I mean, yeah, tell me.
Recruitment.
Okay, maybe somebody is speaking. I'm not able to. Okay, deaf understand what is being communicated. That means, yeah. So the deaf will have to actually. So what will be the activities? So suppose if I put a floating topic here, so I will say deaf will have to be treated. So what is the kind of activity that I will need to do? If I take this point, what is the activity that I'll need to do? I'll need to
The treatment and the proper checkups by the parents.
Yeah, so yeah, treatment, okay, of impairment or whatever, treatment of deaf. I'll put it down simple, okay, treatment. Just let's put it down as a simply as treatment, okay. So treatment. So in order for this thing, so they don't have physical impairment. So my activity will be treatment. What will be the activity for parents to undertake early intervention?
Awareness.
Awareness session.
Yeah, very good. Awareness session.
Awareness session.
Or training, or whatever it is. So you have awareness or you have trainings in the community, okay, so that parents will be able to undertake early intervention. Okay, you're getting the feel of what I'm trying to say. You're getting your activities. Here is your outputs. Here is your outcomes. These are your outcomes. Students, see, now quickly tell me what will be the activities I need to have a policy to communicate in English language. So suppose if I have to do that, that means how do I get a policy enacted so that people will start listening?
Through advocacy.
English has to be the part of the curriculum, little knowledge, so that they can understand very
Vernacular.
basics. When
Yeah, so institutions have a policy to communicate uh, uh, in English and supported by whatever in vernacular. Okay. Okay. So institutions have a policy. So how can you get this policy working? So what is it that I need to do in order to make this policy work? Yes, advocacy. Advocacy with whom? With
government.
With the trustees. Yeah, with government, or with that education institution trustees. Okay.
schools
You got it now.
and the education.
So suppose the advocate. Yeah, education with government, education board, whatever it is. Okay. Yeah. So you understand now how your activities are built up. Now lower income groups have minimal fees to pay. So here you can have an activity like what? For example, you can have an activity like fundraising. I'm just giving you one activity, but you could also have what else? Here also you could have an activity like advocate.
Provide them scholarship.
Change. Yeah, tell me.
Sir, am I audible?
I didn't get. Yes. Sir, say once again.
I said providing scholarship. Can you hear me?
Scholarship.
Yeah.
Yeah, scholarship. Scholarship. Okay. Yeah. So I'll just write it down. Okay. So one thing can be advocate for fee structure. Then as I said, fundraising or scholarships. So you have then they have been taught sign language. Then again, so how do we teach sign language? We can have it part of a
training session.
Yeah,
It's
we can have
teacher
training,
training session.
and yeah, training and what you can say, it becomes mandatory for teachers. You know, now I'll just give you an example. Like training for teachers is become mandatory for vernacular language. By the way, I'm just telling you that. Like, suppose if I'm a teacher who's come to teach in Maharashtra, and if I don't know Marathi, I have to do Marathi course. Okay, so you have a training that is mandatory. Okay, or a training in computers. Like, I mean, this is not for this project, but for other projects. Like, okay, teachers feel the need. Again, what we can say is have a motivating or awareness sessions. Okay, so what you can do. Yeah, then government not sensitized, you can have the same thing here into this also. Okay, government did not feel the need for a policy. This we can have another thing called, I think all of you will agree with me. So whatever it is, what you can have is what you can have advocacy. Whatever. So here you have your activities, friends. So what your organization will need to do in order to achieve these outcomes, and these outcomes will lead you to your goal. Are you clear with it now? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to? You can feel the energy of doing such an exercise. Is it exciting?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now this is something I would like to do. Ask you to do. I'm sorry, I did not complete my whole portion, but it's okay. I can teach you the remaining part in the next session of mine. So I come back to what I was talking to you in the strategic planning process. Okay. So I do a needs analysis, I do a problem tree analysis and can understand the current situation. Now I took a lot of time on this, my dear friends, is because it is connected to the assignment which I'm giving you. Okay. Now you will do an assessment of a target community and the issues. Okay. And then you will be able to say, now, based on this problem tree, what is the data that I need to, now I'll come back to strategic planning. I think in my next lecture, I'll come back to these points and I'll complete it with you in my next lecture. Okay. In my next lecture, I'll try to cover it up so that I don't. Therefore, you know, when you have it offline, we can cover a lot of portion, but online becomes a little difficult, friends. Okay. So anyway, let me see how best I can do it. Now, once you do this problem tree, what you need to do is to say, what is the data that I need to collect? So now you tell me very quickly, what is the data that I'll need to collect with regard to all these statements that I have on my screen? What is the data that I need to collect?
So number of deaf population across the city, like a rough number of deaf population.
Yeah, so you will need to say you need to have a database on the number of deaf persons. You can decide your geography in terms of location, say South Mumbai or Central Mumbai or ABCD ward of Mumbai Mahanagar Palika. You can decide your location. Okay, you need to have a database or.
Sir, are we
you need to
collecting
collect
the sir? Are we collecting the number of deaf population or the population who are interested in higher learning?
Yes. Okay. So that is again another point. Well spoken, Kushala. What you need to do is to say, okay, can we look at, when we are looking at a tool, the tool that gives me the point which I'm talking about, the tool that will be have to be developed. The tool that you will develop is now saying that data on deaf population, but deaf who have completed sorry, graduation and who intend to go for higher education in the last 5 years or last 2 years.
So we can collect the
We
data
need
of
to
deaf
collect
youth,
data.
not the whole, the deaf youth. We can target it in deaf youth. Uh, who are interested in, as
Yes.
Kushala said, interested in higher learning or education. Definitely.
Yes. 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 Purna. So that's interesting how you can develop the tool. I know it's only 10 minutes now I have left for my lecture to end, but please try to understand that looking at this map, you need to see what is the data points that you need to target. I think all of you are quite smart because you'll have worked in the sector. As in, you know what is research, as in looking at what are the data points from this sheet that I would need to collect. Okay, and that will become the basis of your tool. You got it? Like, for example, you would need to look at what is the current institution fee structure. Okay, what is the possibility of reworking the fee structure? Okay, which are the areas of the fee structure that we can advocate for a change? I'll just give you an example. Okay, like for example, in the fee structure of a college, you have certain sections. Like for you have the tuition fee, you have other fees, important things like library, gymkhana, then
Examination fees and
so whatever it is, some fees, examination fee, yeah. So you'll need to look at those fee structures and say that what is the fee structure that we can advocate for change. Okay, and then look at that and say how can those costs be reduced. So that is the data that you need to collect with regard to fee structures. Then you need to look at what is the government institutions policies. Okay, and you need to look at what is you need to look at each of these things and see, probably speak to government officials and collect data from government officials on certain points. Then you need to talk to teachers and perhaps take data on regard to number of teachers who have certain skills, who already are able to teach, who can teach and are open to teaching in sign language. Okay, so each of these, now this is a little technical in that sense, so you'll have to be careful about what is the data points that you need and how you need to collect it. Okay, from which stakeholders you need to collect it, and how you would need to collect it. Now, since we did a topic like this, I hope you will be able to connect. But there are many other topics that we can look at. Like, I'm more used to topics like, personally, I have not done a project on this so far, but I've done projects on rural India, so I know the data points immediately of rural India when you're talking about that. So it's like, take for example, in a community that you're working with women empowerment projects. Okay, so you're looking at collecting data on women empowerment. Okay, with regard to financial access, so that through financial access, they can improve the economic status of their families. So what is the data required? Okay, so don't do it that way, but I'm just giving you example. But don't do it that way. Please follow the steps which I'm telling you to follow. Okay, find out what is the issue. As you can see here, what is the issue? Find out what is the issue. Find out what are the causes of those issues. And then after finding out the causes of those issues, and then after finding out the causes of those issues on first level, second level, third level, then find out what are the activities that you need to do. Okay, and in the same process, you will be looking at the data points. Okay, am I sounding practical through? I mean, this example was a little technical in that sense because you need to actually look at certain technical points in this. But I'm sure the other projects that you take will be much more easier in other points. Okay. Hello. Am I getting across to you?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the next class, we will look at these things about strategic planning process, that we need to look at key thrust areas. Okay. So once you do this, then you will be able to look at the key thrust areas that you are looking at. Now, thrust area in this case would be, in this case, you'll be looking at the key thrust area of hearing impaired students access to higher education. That will be a thrust area. Okay, or hearing impaired students will be a thrust area. And further, if you go further, you will be able to say that is that hearing, is it aligned to the vision mission of your organization currently? Okay, can you think of change the goals and outcomes of each of these areas. So certainly once you have done this, you will be able to change your goals and your objectives of your organization. Then you'll need to formulate strategies. You remember in the previous example when I spoke to you about farmers and when we were looking at the seeds to be purchased. OK, we looked at strategies. Now look at strategies in this case. Now suppose if you have to do an advocacy with the education government and with the education trustees, what would be the strategy that you would use so that we can get the strategy? I mean, we can get a result that government would be open to other languages being taught in the colleges. OK, what would be the strategy you would use to get advocate for change in the fee structure? OK, what would be the strategy that you would use to get teachers in order to adopt sign language? OK, while giving training, in the training process. OK, that has been basically your main activities has been physical health treatment, awareness programs, advocacy on various levels with various stakeholders. So I think your project that I can see developing here, will have certain key activities and then they will have certain strategies. OK, so these strategies you need to put down in order to achieve these objectives. Now you'll see a flow of what I'm talking to you in terms of a strategic plan. Then you will develop a budget for each of the areas that you're looking at. OK, and how will you monitor this over the next? We said we'll achieve it by 2025. So that means we'll have to look at a plan that will evolve from 2022 to 2025. You need to look at indicators and those indicators. Stakeholders we have already identified. The stakeholders in this case are the beneficiary group, that is the hearing impaired, the parents, the teachers, government, trustees, anybody else? OK, so there'll be lots of stakeholders that we can look at, or maybe certain service providers like those who give hearing aid impairment, hearing aid equipment.
College authority.
A certain government company. Yeah. Sorry, which authorities?
College.
Yes, college authorities. So they become your stakeholders. So in the strategic plan, it will be important to put down these things. So when you look at a key, you identify key stakeholders. You will identify networking partners. That means to say, whom do you network with? For example, you will network with government doctors. With doctors, or you will network with education institutions. You'll network with service providers like those who give hearing services, hearing aid services. I'm just roughly saying, you may differ with me. OK. Then after you have put down each thrust area, we have taken only one thrust area, hearing impaired, but you could have multiple thrust areas. Then you will come up with your mission statement, the new mission statement of your organization. And after looking at your mission statement, then you will fine tune the vision of your organization for the next 5 years or for the next 10 years. And after looking at your vision, you will say, in order to achieve this vision, what are the values that I need to hold in order to achieve this vision? OK, I think I should close now. We are sharp 4 minutes down the line. We will have to close the class. So my dear friends, what I'm saying is, you will notice I have taken you to a inverted pyramid approach. OK, so what was the inverted? How did I take you through? I said, start with consulting. I said, look at the existing situation. OK, so what did we do? We looked at the existing situation. Where am I? Yeah, so we looked at the existing situation. We looked at an issue. We looked at a problem tree. OK, then we came from the problem tree. We then looked at the outcomes. And then finally, we came out with our mission and our vision. And that mission and vision, we said, is something that we need to look at in terms of our values. OK, so you notice the process of a strategic planning is not primarily to say that this is my vision and mission. I have to start with saying, what is my current situation? What is the things that I need to address? Okay. Look at that problem, analyze that problem. From that problem, come up with clear activities as per the outcomes, and then from there, look at the vision, mission, and then the vision, and then the values that you hold. Now, isn't this something totally different from what sometimes we as organizations do? Very often in the NGO sector, I'm not saying corporate, because I have very less experience. I have probably only around a few years of experience in the corporate sector, but I've majorly worked in the NGO sector. So my NGO sector experience has been that we normally have top management or the core thinkers sitting and sharing and talking about the vision mission. But really speaking, the vision and mission is something that should emerge from the grassroots. Those who found organizations have this perspective. The founders usually have the perspective because they come from the grassroots. But later on, what happens is we forget the grassroots. Okay, so come back to the grassroots and get your vision tuned up. Okay, for the next class, we will look at the work breakdown structure. I was planning on taking these points of work breakdown structure, and I was going to look at risk. I think it will fit into the next class of how to manage risk and all that. Okay. Yeah, needs assessment is what I covered, but don't worry. Needs assessment, I will also run you through these slides of needs assessment. This is pestle analysis, which I already spoke about, SWOT analysis, and problem tree, which I just now did the problem tree. I did not go to these slides, but these slides will be a refresher when I start my class next time, just to refresh you. I've kept one example here for two examples rather. Okay. Okay, and then finally the whole needs assessment. Okay. Now I'll come back to my the first slide which I showed you is your deliverables at the end of 2 lectures. I'm looking at something that you need to do. So what I'll do is in your group, I'll cut and paste this review that you need to do. I will share with you an article which you can read. I'm going to give you very simple, very pointed work to do. Read this article, look at the documentary, okay, and understand the concept of needs assessment as I spoke to you. Okay, now I spoke to you from a very technical aspect of analysis through a problem tree. Now look at what these people are saying about needs assessment. Okay, undertake a needs assessment in any urban or rural community and follow a process of first drawing the problem tree. Okay, so this is your assignment, and consequently prepare a tool. That's exactly what I took you through during this last 1.5 hours. Now the tool can be 4 pages covering around 20 to 30 questions depending upon how you have done it. Like for example, I gave you here in this map, if you remember, that this is your problem tree and this is how you can do it. Okay. So coming back to this, I can say that this tool you can prepare, and then in the next class tomorrow, I will take not tomorrow, next Sunday, I will take a feedback from you as to how you are progressing with regard to this. Okay. I'll take a feedback and tell me where you are getting stuck. What is the problems or what are the difficulties that you are facing? Okay. So I think I'll call an end to this class today. Thank you for being attentive. Thank you for participating. And if there are any questions, please let me know, or you can even text it in the group. And if possible, I'll try to text you back or I'll have a conversation over the phone. If you need to, you have my number too in the phone. Okay. And if you want to, you can also call, you can send me an email. This is my contact number, which is there on the group. And this is my email. It's very easy to remember, cletusz@gmail.com. Okay. Thank you and all the best. Have a lovely weekend and also another week before you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
and over to Nikita. Yeah, thank you all of you, and over to Nikita. Yeah, I think she might have left. Okay, Kajal, thank you for joining. Kushala, all of